It being on or about 6:30 on Monday, May 6, 2019, I call this meeting of the Easton Conservation Commission to order. Please note you're being audio and video recorded, so act accordingly. First up, 150 Foundry Street.
And with 150 Foundry Street is Dr. Dave Mitchell,
yes.
our peer reviewer.
Welcome back.
See you again?
You guys wouldn't mind signing in, please, and then let's get up to speed.
Nice.
And signatures.
We're up to schematics, proposed schematics for the aeration system as developed by the Vertex Water Features, who's a vendor we utilize to design and appropriately scale the aeration systems we use. It has been presented to Andrew and Dr. Mitchell. Those actually on kind of just saw Dr. Mitchell's comments from the supplemental information, and I would prefer to address the kind of areas of partial kind of his comments for the recommended information required. That's starting off with the aeration, the bathymetric report, and volume measurements. They've calculated the total acre feet of water in the pond based upon the sediment and bathymetric polling completed probably 2 weeks ago now. The schematic design has been provided to everybody. The flashboards were installed by the applicant, and on April 24th at 12 p.m. they were installed, and they were measured at 6 inches against a yardstick that was placed next to it. 24 hours later, on April 25th, the flashboards were, or the ruler was then at 9 inches, or the water level was at 9 inches against the ruler, and the following day, once again at 12 p.m., the flashboards were at retaining water to 12 inches. So over the span of 48 hours, 6 inches of water was retained, with rain occurring over the weekend.
6 inches of water was retained. 6 inches of water, could you explain that?
So the water level of the pond was raised 6 inches over 48 hours. That was the Friday the 26th. That night, with the storms coming through, the applicant decided he didn't want to put pressure on the boards or the entire system, and removed them, and the water level then returned back to 6 inches over time. And very little water, he observed, was mitigating through the boards and flowing out the spillway.
Could I just clarify, so the 24th to 26th, was that generally clear those days? Was it rainy, or there's a storm coming? Just trying to figure it out.
There was substantial rain during those days.
Okay. So.
It's April, so it rained.
Understand.
The night of the 26th and 27th was when we got the storm system coming through, because I flew over it. The turbulence indicated as such.
I guess my point being is that's probably the mostly groundwater flow what we're seeing coming in, because it's, so, and then you can figure out
Or
that's
spring.
half a foot, so that's roughly 2.1 acre feet or something for that period, so you get some, you'll be able to get some idea of some flow through at least, so.
Yeah.
Take a look at that.
Requirement.
Can you point out where you are in the document?
Point of, I'm going through Dr. Mitchell's comments for recommended information needed.
Okay.
So,
Top of page.
Bottom of page, top of page 2.
yeah. Or third point down, applicant must demonstrate the operation and effectiveness of the flashboards to detain water in pond. And as we say, conduct water quality monitoring late summer to establish levels of DO depth of pond and help set target goals for aeration that benefit the interests of the Wetlands Protection Act. Aeration is a net benefit to the system, as it is increasing the dissolved oxygenation, increasing circulation within the pond, and secondarily increasing the dissolved oxygen concentrations of within the water body. That while there might not be much, the fishery might be limited within the pond. That is a benefit to the fish that do call the pond home. And the maintenance of the aeration system and monitoring will be conducted by Solitude Lake Management throughout the season, during our monthly visits to the site. So,
You're coming monthly?
yes. Do you have any?
I'm just questioning, okay, so we've got 3, that's the feet from the source or something, your schematic I'm looking at.
Yeah, so the Vertex located there's 4 diffuser locations, and that's the length of hose. They've misplaced the aeration, or the compressor cabinet. Again, we're looking to place that on the south side by the snack shack, and
Okay, so that, is it this the location you want it to go at or something? Is this the snapshot?
down,
Down there.
yeah, that's, and again, the hose length is,
So you're gonna go kind of down the stream.
yeah,
So the entry point's not there, but it's actually down the stream.
Okay, so they'll just add a couple hundred feet, 150,
Yeah,
couple
it
hundred
is,
feet to each
and-
line.
it's self-weighted rubber hose. It sinks to the bottom. There's no trenching underwater. It just lays flat on the bottom and usually kind of gets covered in.
Are you gonna put concrete pad with compressor on?
No, because it comes on a plastic mounting. The cabinet itself is on a plastic frame.
Base?
Base, yeah, base would probably
So
be.
no construction of the buffer zone?
No construction, the buffer zone.
I guess the only thing I think left is, if you're gonna use the flashboards, you're gonna need to figure out how those hoses will be detached or stored or whatever, and again, you just need to make sure there is a good procedure for that. So, and the last thing about too is in terms of next time, if you have a chance and it's not too, it just seems like you're just putting boards in, wait till it looks like a couple of days of clear weather, and then just see, I'd be curious to see how far you can go. I know you don't wanna overtop or anything like that, but see if you can get more than that, so. And take some photographs, so document all that kind of stuff, so.
Yeah, absolutely.
I guess that was the only questions on aeration.
Okay. Do you guys have anything you want to add on aeration? Or any questions?
Yep. It's just that one topic, right?
Yeah, just the aeration, yeah.
Okay.
I have some questions if I can. Okay. How do you determine the size of the aerator you put in? I have no idea, I've never done that.
Again, that's based, we go to Vertex and they have, the scientists, they have, I've seen some of their very intense models figuring out turnover rate and how many stations are then needed. It's based upon water depth.
Yeah, so they know what the volume is.
Yeah, and this is what this company does, so we
Yeah.
don't, we tell them where we want the compressor, and more often than not, they get it right. And then they kind of base the system and they say, okay, pond this size should be 4 stations, and then they arrange it as they see best.
Were you guys there when they were building it? When McCloskey was there digging it, or no?
No.
No.
What type of pressure is it?
Yeah, yeah.
What type of pressure in the lines?
Um,
9.
yeah, I think it says 9. Yeah, so it's.
So what did McCloskey, because he was taking all the sand out of there, which was incredible sand, he was stockpiling it next door and he was selling it to everybody as perk sand. But, because it came out, it was washed sand. But what did they end up hitting at the bottom? I'm just curious. I know nothing about this pond except watching them build it.
So that was.
You must have been a babe.
No, it wasn't that long ago. No, when they came out and went down deeper, that was maybe
So this
15
was
years
the,
ago.
Kind of the bathymetry when we were out there.
I was gonna say, you're pretty old, 'cause the original pond was built after the Civil War. Well, after you were done with George and, Tommy Jefferson then,
So that's kind of the depths that we recorded
Oh, right here. Okay.
based upon the 7.
Okay.
when that was
Could
conducted.
you use some sort of a rod or something?
Yeah, it was a calibrated piece of 1/4-inch.
PVC pipe or
iron, yeah, iron rod.
aluminum conduit or something like that, yeah.
So there's a, like, number 9, for example. It's 9 feet over 0.8 feet. Is that 9 feet of water depth, 0.8 feet of sediment depth?
Yeah.
Okay.
So Andrea, so back in the day, which I'm guessing it was
Oh, it's right
15 years ago, they obviously had a permit on that to do it.
They did, and it was dredged to they had a proposed depth to dredge to. And then they got a certificate of compliance without having any as-built bathymetry.
Oh, because I remember that, and Maplewood was doing it, but I remember McCloskey digging it, and I was just curious. Obviously, that was dug for Maplewood for the kids to enjoy. Is this basically? I was reading how you were picking up on the chemicals that were in it, obviously to try to control the weed growth that's in there. Is the town pool the same thing too? Do we have that issue there? Not to change the subject, but
I honestly don't know what the underlying material is at the pond pool, so I personally can't
Okay.
answer that.
But you
But
can go
no,
take
it's
a look
really
at it, like,
sandy
right now.
here.
It's pretty low. Or, well, actually, no, it's not anymore.
Let's go
Maybe
for a
not.
swim.
no.
Yeah.
So I've seen one of these aerators work before up on they did a lake up in Maine, and I witnessed it when it was being put in. This is a big lake. It was probably 3.5 miles across, and it was having the problem with the oxygen, and they were getting all the, what was the name of that species that was growing? It was just choking out everything. And they put the aerator in, and it cleared it all up. Togus Pond, Togus Lake up in Augusta, and the thing was massive. And as soon as I get the oxygen in there, all that, I can't try to remember the name of that specific weed, if you want to call it whatever, but it's very long. They all stand up like this. Do you know what I'm talking about? They all stand up and they just choke everything up, and you can't even see the fish anymore.
There's a lot of weeds like that.
Yeah, but they almost have
They're called
fingers.
lily pads?
They have, no, they don't come above the water. They stay down about a foot below the top of the water, and they all have like little needles on them. I forget, I do know the name of it.
Water milfoil of some sort, the Aeration water milfoil.
It was a milfoil. I remember the name, but
But
that
I
I saw,
remember it being pretty effective.
yes, I couldn't believe how quickly it cleaned it up
Cool.
on a big. This is a 3.5 mile lake.
It's pretty big.
Yeah, yeah.
The one question that, I think that Dr. Mitchell asked, but I don't know that we have an answer, maybe we'll get it later in the hearing here, is when you're monitoring the water quality, what are you gonna be measuring for, including, dissolved oxygen?
So the typical suite, and if the commission wants to propose, have a condition of what should be required to be tested, a typical suite is temperature, dissolved oxygen, pH, alkalinity, total phosphorus, to see if there are phosphorus issues, total chiral nitrogen.
Keldol nitrogen?
Yeah, never pronounced that one right. Chiral,
Usually ammonia, nitrate.
yeah, ammonia and nitrate.
And then total Keldol gives you your total nitrogen, so.
Right.
And again, the focus on the nutrients is because that's the basis of, it basically is the fertilizer in the pond,
Sure.
particularly phosphorus.
So is that an appropriate suite of things we should be looking at? Is
Well, I
there
think
something else?
Every
that-
month?
We're talking about, well, I think maybe, again, we talked about having a baseline
Yeah.
to see what it
Mhm.
is for a season, and then you might come back and ask whether you need to do it as much if you're seeing the same numbers. But one of the things that I think in terms of that they need to know for the management, you need to think about too, is that besides the plants, they have a lot of poor water quality. So the question is, there is nutrients in there for making algae, phytoplankton, and it's getting some idea, they don't know really right now how what is the source of that or what the levels are. I think they need some baseline. So for the first year, you might wanna do those on a monthly basis.
Mhm.
Okay.
And then finally going back to the aeration, I don't know, it's up to the areas to decide what they're gonna target. Obviously, the more power they put in, the more air it gets. But are you looking basically to keep the fish happy, or, I mean, you're looking at both trying to keep the fish and your warm water fish happy, but you're also looking at possible oxidation of some of the bottom sediment, is that the other?
I'm sure, yes, I mean, the oxygenation of the bottom sediments are definitely, a component to it. And at that point, you then have the bacteria, you have aerobic, bacteria. Occurring and kind of consuming the, organic material that has accumulated on the bottom. Again, based upon the sediment and bathymetry and sediment map, there isn't a ton of organic sediment on the bottom, but we typically found 6 to 12 inches of kind of accumulated detritus. And yeah, as increasing that oxygenation, we are looking to increase the microbial activity with regards to the breakdown of that organic matter.
I got two surprises out of looking at the map. The depth got a lot deeper.
Yeah.
Yes,
Mm.
yeah,
I don't know who you
that's
set out
true.
in 2016
Yeah, I don't know
to get an average depth of 4, but it's not a small difference between 4 feet and 10 deep. And then the second thing is that the sediment is not that great. So when they did do that dredging, they took a lot of stuff out.
A lot of stuff.
You know, and they're talking about
Thousands of
about a
stuff.
foot or something like that.
Yeah,
A lot of
this-
most lakes you see a couple of feet or something like that. This is relatively low.
He was there for about a month and a half. It was a
Found
long
happy sand
time.
deposits and
Yeah,
keep on digging,
yeah,
basically. So.
Doctor, also when they put those aerators in, I know what their purpose is when you put them at the depth, is they're supposed to stir up the water, actually get everything moving, and then the salts that are heavy, that are down below, it's supposed to push them up. Sunlight's supposed to hit the salt, makes a natural chlorine, and it's supposed to help purify the water. This is the stuff I read on it, why they do that system. I just heard that about it. I don't know if
I'm
you've...
not so sure I would believe that.
I wouldn't categorize that as what we're trying to do.
No, but that's what happens, so obviously when salt goes to the top and the sun hits it, that's
Well,
what...
salt should pretty much dissolve, so I don't think, if there was a density difference with all the salt on the bottom,
Mhm.
it still does not make chlorine gas, it doesn't disinfect, it would just
Okay.
bring the salty water, it makes it better.
Because you do have, in that area, it's the high manganese area too, by the way.
And this actually, you've got 15 feet, you may actually see a little bit of of a cold layer in the bottom too, since it's groundwater,
Of
so,
course, yeah.
Interesting.
anyway.
So at
55
that depth,
degrees.
the aeration might have some benefit.
It actually has more in this scenario than a 4-foot depth, actually, I think, so,
Great.
The temperature's 55 at the bottom, right?
exactly,
Yep.
4 degrees Celsius in deep lakes. Whatever that turns out. In
So,
the wintertime.
In terms of your inspection checklist, do you have a standard checklist that you send out with your crews?
So typically our crew's gonna go out once a month, he's gonna assess the conditions and earlier on in the season when the vegetation growth.
So do you
Yes.
have a standard checklist that you give them to fill out?
I'm not gonna say there's a standard, there is no standard checklist. The the aquatic specialist who'd be managing this, he has over 10 years managing lakes and ponds in this part of the state and in New England as a whole. In terms of determining when to apply the herbicide, it's at his discretion to see, okay, is the vegetation growth impeding the wildlife functions? Is it over 75% of the water column where that's kind of the threshold? Because again, having low growing vegetation cover on the bottom is beneficial to, but.
Well, I guess outside of the herbicides, if you guys don't have a standard template, could you put something together so that we have a consistent set of data coming in for the monthly reports that we can,
Yes,
and then
so-
you guys can digest, so we can kind of put that as part of the
Yes, and
overall
we'll have
package?
his kind of notes, whether or not he treated what the second disc, I know Dr. Mitchell touched on that, which is kind of looking at the water clarity. When he was out a couple weeks ago, the water clarity is already at 5 feet. If it's not going to get better with temperatures warming up. Yeah, we can provide those.
They typically would do, I would suggest maybe putting a buoy out there so you have a central location near the deep hole that you do it. And then again, you want to do the physical things you mentioned, do temperature, pH, alkalinity. There's basically a suite that comes with the water monitor probe that you put down. And then take samples from the top, and sometimes the bottom's instructed, but I'll think about that, and then do the nutrients. And then those have to be sent, taken away and sent to a lab to do. That's not a kit or anything like that. You want to take them to a state certified lab. And then again, the Secchi disc is something that can be measured. That's something I've been suggest you can do with your own folks on a more regular basis because you're there all the time. That's cheap to do and easy to do.
Can we reestablish these sample spots pretty easily?
Well, you're saying put the buoy out there?
Yeah, put a buoy or GPS these days.
Right.
It's fairly, we have 15 feet pretty much in the centroid, right here, so that seems, why not there?
Yeah.
Right, yeah, so these were just done to determine the water depth. I mean, he did take a GPS point there, but stop me if I'm wrong, Dr. Mitchell, but you're suggesting just one water sample collected from the center.
I'll think about maybe the first time you also get what's going out the outlet or something like that. That's an easy one to get
But
to.
not at each one of those points.
No,
That's
this-
not necessary.
The basin is pretty simple, and there's no reason to believe that there'd be terrible differences. I don't see any kind of gradients in either, like, we've got no pipes going into it as far as I know. The stormwater comes in, generally from the buffer area. It doesn't seem to be routed anyway, so I wouldn't see there'd be a typical gradient. So I think one sample would be enough.
Great.
I would suggest maybe top and bottom, maybe for one or two to see, because sometimes you do get differences. That tells you if you're, to go beyond this, but if it's very low oxygen in the bottom, the sediments, and they're not oxygenated, then they can actually be a source of phosphorus, because it can recycle under those kinds of conditions. You would might want to know that. That goes back to your nutrient sources.
So given, Dr. Mitchell's offering to set up your monitoring plan for you. Sounded like it.
I like the
Sounded like
idea,
it.
what you said, Dr.
We
Mitchell,
do
is on
need
the
to have
outflow, the
know
outflow like
what
they
to
typically
expect.
do on,
Right. That's what's going to
Hydrants.
the Hockomock Pond.
Yeah.
The Hockomock Swamp, so.
Right.
They should not be terribly different, but until you determine.
right.
Okay.
I can come up with some suggestions and they can come up and approve it. I don't want to,
Yeah.
Okay, good.
And you'll have it for
Well, I
the
think you've got
environmental.
some good input there. Yeah. You got your suite. We'll just put it on the template and we'll sample, like I said, sample from the monitoring station once a month for the first year, and then we'll do. How long do you think they need to do the nutrient tests for the top and bottom?
I think that maybe we'll do that every other time for the first year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Probably during late summer is the most instructive time. I'll think about it a little bit more.
Okay.
Depending on when you guys approve it, it'll start, midsummer and then probably end in September, whenever the recreational is. And then you might want to take one even in the winter time just to see how clean things get too. That's the other thing.
Okay. Any other questions on the aeration?
Nope.
Okay.
Herbicide performance standards he gave us, in kind of in general terms, is that standard? Kind of used it, he kind of was talking about coverage of weed growth and,
Well, I heard 75, and I don't know if I'd seen that number before, because if looking at this document, it says 50.
Yeah, so so that's the actual one for the commission. And yeah, so in switching over to herbicides, if greater than 20% of the water, no, that's the,
Get your filamentous algae.
yeah, that was the filamentous algae criteria. And so
We have a bunch of, I mean, it may be easy just to walk through these things, we'll get to the performance standards.
Yeah, sounds good.
Following just through here.
Just follow in order.
So the first thing I was just mentioning again, where you need to make sure, and it sounds like you may have delineated where your limits of were gonna be.
yes, and again, and I think that was.
Is that on any of the maps or?
I think it's figure 4.
It's kind of a general figure.
In the original NOI, where we have kind of the management zone, the management area, which is about, I think it's 70% of the water body. Again, we're leaving that northern kind of 30% as wildlife habitat. And again, with some of the herbicides, the labeling restrictions do not allow for more than 50% of the water body to be treated at any one time, so there's that additional safeguard of, so of the 70%, less than that would be treated at any one time to manage the excessive nuisance vegetation growth, which, and nuisance is determined as over 50% of the biovolume, or greater than 50% biovolume within the water column, because at that point it's starting to reach up to kind of the surface and impeding the circulation of the pond, or of the water in the pond. So that would.
Just restate again, how much of the area of the pond and then what the criteria would be for within that area for treatment?
So the management area is about approximately 70% of the water body.
And that's indicated by the figure we gave there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
It's
And-
more than 70, but without the
And again, no more than half of the actual water body can be treated at any one time per label restrictions, with diclot and or endothol, the two of the proposed herbicides. And treatment will be based upon when vegetation within the management area is in excess of 50% of the, or growth of, in excess of 50% biovolume within the water column. So when it starts to reach growth exceeding halfway up through the water column, that's the trigger for us to manage it and.
Okay, so
treat.
it's reaching 50% of the height of
Yes,
the
of the
the
water
test
volume.
volume, not
Yes.
not 50% by volume of the column. Just the growth
Is there a
is.
formula you do for BioI? I'm just curious. Is it density times, I mean, how do you, I mean, is it just simply looking at the height within the water column? Is that what you first?
And I mean, it's also the plant species where, I mean, some of the, with the species present, it probably would be, or the pondweed species present, growth of that greater in excess of 50% of the water column would be managed. There are other species that don't have as much biovolume, your water lilies that grow to the top, at which point but there isn't much water lily growth, if any, within the pond.
So this is what you came out in 2000, so you're looking at treating this material down here, which is
Yes.
70%, you say you can not do more than one half, so I'm suggesting there's 35% and 35% will be treated in sequentially, or?
No, so half the total pond water body can't be treated at any one time per label restrictions.
Okay, so.
Oh, so of the total, not just of the
so it
treatment
could be-
area, but of the whole pond.
Yes, it could be 50% of the
Of the
70.
70.
Yes.
So this is your action area, at
Yes.
which point you'll decide based on the actual plant location where your actual application areas are going to
Yes.
be, and that could be no more than 50% of the total
Yes.
area of the pond.
Yes.
And that's determined by
The
the
site
man in the
visits.
field.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Now, I guess just after, since we're talking about the aeration and the fact that it gets the water moving, does that system get turned off when you apply the herbicides?
I would think so.
Yeah, I mean, that's.
Because the
have-
idea is that they sink down.
And they also have to pull the hoses out of the flashboard somehow too, because at the same time we're doing.
Yeah,
the
that's,
herbicides,
we haven't figured out the exact.
You wanna have the
configuration.
flashboards in there to prevent water from coming down. It's a good way of holding the water in there.
Right.
So that needs to be, again, these are the devil in the detail. These are the kind of things that need to be spelled out.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
At 9 PSI, there's a million different quick disconnects you can use that don't cost nothing.
Yeah, it's,
Yeah.
it will
Hardware,
get there.
yeah.
So Dan, what you missed at the last meeting was where, since they're willing to consider it, this was gonna be the meeting where we had a lot of details.
Have you
We'll have to
guys
get into it like this.
done herbicide treatments in water bodies and ACECs previously?
Yes. I can't provide them off the top of my head, but I know we have.
Could you follow up with us and
Other
get us?
ECs?
Yeah. I'd kind of be interested in how those were conditioned and how that worked out.
Yeah, I think one off the top of my head that I can think of is the Nashua River up in Pepperell and Groton that, and there were no outstanding. Off the top of my head, there were no outstanding, but I can take a look and definitely pull together a list of projects that I imagine there are ACE projects and ACECs in this part of the state too.
Well, luckily we
Yeah, good
had,
to know.
like, from last time, was what Dr. Mitchell said was from we happen to have luck that this happens to be of not much consequence to the ACEC.
Right.
It's a oasis, if you will, I think was the word you used.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we just want to be careful in how we identify a water body in an ACEC being non-consequential and how it's conditioned, so that it can't just be used as a, basically case law for
Right.
throwing precedent.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. In an area you don't want it used. Okay.
Focus on the potential for downstream impacts.
Yeah.
So the applicant must show the minimum or no downstream impacts essentially.
Yeah. That's a good point.
And the next point was just getting along the dosage. When you get into it, you have to provide the dose and all that, and that's an expert, I know, that goes at the point you actually decide what it is you're going to use and how much you
And
need.
would it be sufficient for the commission to receive the, WMO4 license to apply chemicals issued by the Office of Watershed Management, by DEP? Is that, because that's what DEP, upon issuance of the order of conditions, we take the signature page, the first couple pages, and we add that to our permit application that goes to the state for their review of the actual, okay, they are proposing to use diclot, androcol, and a peroxide-based algaecide at X, Y, and Z rates based upon the water body area and water volume. Is that an acceptable, is that within the label rates? Because that is accomplished. We do that with the Office of Watershed Management, and they, again, the Office of Watershed Management issues 350 plus of these a year. They are familiar with the rates. We aren't going to be applying rates in excess of the label, because again. the
So
label is-
basically, you're asking, can we condition it such that you guys have discretion to get the approval from DEP when, based on your
Based
criteria,
upon
an
for proper
application
dose-
is needed?
Yes.
Well,
That's-
what I'm hearing is that you're not gonna know until later?
No, so I can tell you right now what the dosing would be for half of, for half the water body.
Okay,
The rates, and if they aren't in excess of the label rates on the product herbicide, on the product labels.
I think probably since we're in an ACEC, that probably stating that specifically so that we can condition it, not to exceed whatever the volume is of herbicide.
Sure.
I think that's what's being requested. I mean, do we think that's reasonable?
Certainly getting the Mass DEP license here is also
Okay,
reasonable. I heard him say earlier that he would decide the dosage based on what he saw for parameters that day.
correct.
So
That was my
that's
comment.
way
Right,
too, it's
so-
way too much.
So if anything, I'm going to
Control.
be
Yeah.
asking for somewhere in the top, call it 75% of the maximum label rate. And if, when our applicator goes out there, again, he has 10 years of experience, he sees, oh, okay, there are X, Y, and Z species, they can be controlled at a less rate, so I only have to use half the
Right.
maximum label rate.
But that's why I proposed a not to exceed rate.
Okay, yeah, we can have the
Minute-
not
Well,
to
the
ex-
EPA level will give you not to exceed.
Right, which again, I'm getting from Mass DEP Office of Watershed Management. So, I mean, sure, I can provide that information, but the state's already,
Right,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
an issued license to apply chemical will have the not to exceed
Right.
rates on it.
Yeah,
I'll bring a copy of their permit to the next meeting, or post it online as an example.
I'm simply trying to establish what our baseline, what our tolerance is for what.
right. And what I'm hearing him say is there's already,
And
at
that's
least
fine.
what I've heard Andrea say, and these.
And if we wanna condition it not to exceed, the label rate or whatever it is, or, if we wanna say, because we're dealing with 50% of the volume of the thing, not to exceed this amount in any one application, I mean, that's fine to me, or not. I mean, I'm making a suggestion here to make sure that we have an adequate understanding of what's being applied.
Well, I also want to make sure we condition it so we don't have to micromanage
No.
things. So Dr. Mitchell, you mentioned that focus in this case in a situation like this one really should be on downstream effects. Do you think based on the results of flashing, and I looked real quick, the website kept going back to Logan for rainfall, even though I kept putting in Easton, but it said over those days there was no rainfall, basically. Do you think that shows that it did a pretty good job of stopping up the water flow?
I don't know enough about the system yet to
Yeah.
figure that out too. I mean, I think you do wanna go there and actually see if there's leakage around there really, truthfully, and,
Yeah. Yeah.
going back to this thing of pesticides, I think, the EPA label is pretty much their, I always say it's their strongest case. This has been played out over the country, and if they keep by the label thing is designed to be safe. If they have some specific experience with water thread pondweed, which I'm not all that, and find out that, gee, that's more susceptible and I don't need to use that, that'd be fine, they could back it down, they can't exceed it.
Correct.
Right.
And, and the fact that half of the pond, you may want to, you get the calculations, it would be calculations, you could see what the average thing is. It looked like dividing the pond by this amount of water and this amount of chemical, and you get this concentration. So I don't know how much more that would give you. I mean, this is what they do.
Okay.
I
And
haven't
that's-
seen too many cases where actually, outside of Solitude or any element of people over applying the applicator. They're a little leery about doing it, and it doesn't pay because they spend money doing it. So,
Right.
they try to get by with what they think they will do.
Do you think it would make sense for the first couple applications to do some kind of downstream testing, so many hours, or was that in there? Or?
What I'd suggested was that in case you guys do any kind of testing for, if you use endofol or that in terms of residues,
Not the only place where we, test for those types of residues are in Connecticut, where we're treating in public water supply watersheds. No, very minimal, testing of end-of-thaw diclot.
Could it be done though?
I mean, it goes pretty quickly, it biodegrades,
I'm not saying it, but in given again the ACEC and the demonstration that you're not having it done, perhaps for the first application, that would be a way of showing that the safeguards you're doing,
Yeah.
that it's not showing up down.
That's something, so maybe we can talk about it all day, but the proof is in the pudding to a certain degree. I mean, and if we can show that after an application, you know, there's no remnants in the downstream water, I don't know if it would make sense while it's still plugged up or
Well,
when.
it'll be talking what there's leaking or groundwater's getting through too, that's the other thing as well.
Yeah.
But I think, I think what will end up is the first time you test it, there will be more elaborate safeguards.
Yeah.
But they would not be repeated again and again and again. It's
Right.
to try and demonstrate it, and again, I think it is the sensitive nature of the downstream ACEC, it's merited to be extra safe. And also
I
for
agree.
people to come down and they're gonna ask you, say, why are you allowing this to happen? You can say, well, we have this special conditions to have them tested. So I would
Right.
say-
They did an application and we showed that downstream effects were undetectable.
Now, with these things, are there field field tests, or is it all gotta go to lab?
it's gotta go to a lab.
Okay,
Okay.
so, but, I mean, you're.
What's the turn time in the labs?
I would say a week, I mean, it might be sooner, it might be a little bit, I would say.
Week plus or minus a few days.
And again, I don't know would you say collecting it a week after the treatment?
I didn't think about it, it might be, within the day of the treatment, 48 hours, or whatever, depends how long you're gonna hold the water too. How long you can, how long can you hold the water, we don't know that in terms of that.
Weather dictated.
Um,
And so I guess also, so we're, cognizant of what kind of costs do these tests have associated with them?
I would conservatively say $200 to $300 per sample round. And that's just for the residue sampling. The in-water sampling suite is, that's much more expensive. I mean, the nutrients, the temperature dissolved oxygen pH, those are pretty quick. And
The residue is the heavier duty test.
no, the nutrients.
Oh, the nutrients
of the
are,
water
okay.
are going backwards.
And you say per test run. So is that per sample, or if you
per
send
sample.
them
That's per
6 samples, it's $1,200 to $1,800.
Yeah, so it's I'd say $200 to $300 per sample.
Okay.
You have to figure, I mean, I understand the cost, you don't go overboard.
Yeah,
You gotta
yeah,
figure
well,
out
yeah,
what you're doing it, yeah.
Well, we're not talking about like $1,000 a test and throwing a few tests that could add up real quick. But we do want to be cognizant of the ACEC. So do we think let's say they apply it in the middle of the day on a Monday, it's boarded up. We've seen that it can be boarded up for a couple of days. Would it be 24 hours, 48 hours,
Actually,
the same
label's the
day?
problem, and it has
So that
neither one of these has a prohibition for water usage, or refresh my memory
diclot does for irrigation of
of plants, so
of
we're
plants.
using it for irrigation.
yeah, that's the only. I mean, there's our drinking water restrictions on on just diclot 2, and I think that's max. I think that's only for livestock, if that's their direct water source. I think that's 5 days. So
Irrigation of food crops is 5 days.
yeah.
Drinking water is 1 to 3 days. Pet and livestock, 1 day. So, at least according to the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources fact
So
sheet.
looking at, once you do the application, taking a sample in the pond, 24 hours later, 48 hours later, and then taking a sample, maybe if there's no water coming out of the outlet, it's not worth it, but there is water coming out of the outlet at the end of 48 hours or something, just to confirm that. Then if you're gonna pull up the flashboards, do that. This stuff does get picked up pretty quickly
Mm-hmm.
by the plants. It also gets picked up with the sediment, photodegrades, some, I forget exactly which of these, some do, some don't.
Diclot does.
Um,
on some
So,
Hmm.
40 hours generally is
Pretty good
considered
test window.
pretty good,
or test point, I should say.
Yeah.
Okay. And so that would be doing the downstream testing 48 hours after application?
I have to think about that more. I don't think,
Okay.
you're looking, and if it's there 48 hours afterwards, it means it was there 24 hours.
Right.
Zero, and you really don't want that, but, maybe 48 hours just to double check on that, yeah.
Okay.
Because if it goes back to the flashboards and they're
Right.
checked. I would only do one test downstream at the end of to see if there's any detectable,
At the end of the
48 hours.
At the end of the 48 hours?
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
And we'll have to figure out where's a good spot to, in the, probably not too far down, but you got a stream channel pretty much down there, right before it gets to the pond.
And is there any kind of simple, I'm just trying to, is the water pretty cloudy by where the flashboard's going? Is it pretty clear?
I mean, yeah, I mean, it's.
Like, I'm just thinking, like, if you had a camera and a light plastic bag that you put around it, would there, if there was any leakage, would that be enough to, like, suck it into the seam? Or some way of testing to maybe visually see if it's leaking?
If there's a concrete channel, it's pretty tight, I guess. I mean, literally, there should be nothing coming out of that concrete channel. Are
Oh.
you mistaking this or not?
Okay.
I mean,
All right.
in
So
fact,
yeah,
if
we could
you-
do a pretty good visual test
If you
then.
recall, here's
Yeah.
the outlet, and then this thing here is there's actually a concrete, almost like a sluice way.
Yeah.
And that you can look down and see if there's appreciable. water
Great. So
coming
we can do a visual test of
out.
that.
Yeah. You probably want to have someone at least, visit it during the time of the application.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure that you're satisfied that the flashboards are holding tight and all that.
Right. All right. Yeah. So if the flashboards are holding tight,
Here's
no
the
no visual flow
Right.
across the concrete.
Or minimum. I mean, if it's just.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Right.
Wet down there,
Right. So if that condition is satisfied, then that'll kick in. Okay, we're good with a 48-hour. What do we call
Holding
it?
time.
Residual test.
You need water in the outlet, so you have to pull a board to get some water in
I'm
that
not thinking
stream.
more, there's water down below that because I think there's a backwater area. Maybe it dries up, the stream dries up.
I'm thinking, doesn't it dry, if you
Does
put
it dry up?
if you put the flashboards in, do you expect there to be any water in the stream?
You've got that little natural stream.
Yeah, there's a little stream there, I'm not sure.
Okay, so I guess that's another condition too. Yeah, if there's no
In
water, there's
July
nothing to
and-
test.
July and August, you don't use flashboards, is there usually water in the stream?
Oh, definitely,
Okay,
there's definitely one on the street.
I'm thinking it could dry, I don't know that it could.
Well, yeah, we won't know until they do it.
That's not a bad thing.
No,
Right.
no, that'd be a good thing in
So
this case,
You probably
right?
wanna find a location where you have a little pool, wherever it goes into Hockomock, that swamp, where you could actually get without
yeah.
too far down the line, that would be your sampling point.
Okay, great. Yeah, so 48 hours. If we see no consistent flow coming out from the boards, then we find our first pooling of water
If
downstream.
you've gone through, you should see the stuff decays in the pond, you
Mhm.
should know, and then the next time they don't have to do that monitoring.
Great.
They do it again.
Absolutely.
That would be very
Kind of a safeguard. I think that'll
Yep.
answer any public questions that might happen, and
That-
great.
that's right.
Rory, Michael, you guys have anything else to add
Nope.
to that part of it, anyways?
What about the,
Oh, we're not there yet. There's a few more sections, I think.
across the street, obviously, you get the
Cranberry Bog.
massive cranberry bog that's there, and obviously,
Hmm.
this is
Downstream.
downstream from it, so everything's going through that, the Taunton River Basin. So what do they dump into that place? What gets in there for chemicals?
I don't know. Haven't
Because
seen
you're
their
in the,
farms
you're in a
yet.
primary, it's a primary
Right.
aquifer that's feeding out.
I
what
had,
we're
I
drinking.
had that
This
curiosity
is,
last
this
meeting.
is why the baseline is so valuable, is, because then you know what he's got without doing any type of treatment.
Right.
You know what he has.
Right, because that's all sandy soils right across that, when they dug that out, I think that was, Will out of Canton dug that one, and, it's all sand, so,
All the pond diggers.
so that passes through the soils pretty good.
Yeah.
And I think that area They pump somewhere around 35 feet is where the town's pumping, up the street from the other wellheads. I think that's the depth that they're going at. So, yeah, I'm just curious, because that's a huge area what's dumping in there, and how that's gonna affect these guys.
Right. Could, but again, to Andrew's point, the baseline,
Yeah.
we'll find out.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, especially it's April, right, so it's the beginning of the growing season. Maybe it'll be
Oh, yeah.
late by the time
We'll really
it's
find out.
first in.
All right, are we good on 2.2?
Yeah.
All right, so foliar application of herbicides in the buffer zone. Is it
That's the,
is that
For the
1.3?
yeah.
Um,
I would call it Phragmites too. That seems straightforward.
Yeah,
Okay,
there's
yep.
no problem. I mean, it's a good thing.
Right.
And the one thing that the Natural Heritage said in their comment was that if this foliar application is successful, you should have something to replant in its place in order to outcompete.
Oh,
And
right.
I wondered how strong the root system was, if you could actually get anything replanted in there. But that's what they had suggested.
I can't speak to that. I think that my only comment was they should commit to do it probably multiple times till it's wiped out. I can't see one, this stuff is very tough to get rid of, so you
Mhm.
put more than one application. I don't know, I would think that other things, that there's an existing vegetation bank there already.
Yeah, I would imagine it would get repopulated from the species presently there.
There's a lot of vegetative growth and goes sideways very well.
Yeah, I see your comment here about the seasonal basis, so we can include that as part of the conditioning, and yeah, I guess if it's not cleaned up by the time the permit's done, we could potentially extend it for that particular issue, if everything else is under control.
Inspect it each growing season and apply as needed.
All right, algaecides?
Again, we're looking to kind of manage, again, less than 1/2 of the pond. Again, we don't wanna, have any dissolved oxygen swings due to the decaying, algal biomass. So,
Is this another one that will be determined in the field by
yes, and that's done, our management thresholds for that were, when water clarity is less than 3 feet, that's a typical, that's a common guideline in Massachusetts. Or if filamentous algae blooms, or mats are present within, in greater than 20% of the pond.
I think you mean 4 feet, is your criteria?
Was it 4 feet?
Yes.
And this
Yeah,
comes
4
back
feet.
from
Yeah.
old, basically an outmoded guidance that doesn't, but 4 feet was thought to be the clarity you wanna have at a swimming pool, a swimming beach, because you can see things on the bottom, and if the kid got down there, you could see them. So it's not really it's not a regulatory, it was an old
Kind of a,
rule of thumb.
Yeah.
So that's where that 4 feet came from, so that may make sense. Now, with the filamentous algae, the 20%, I'm not sure where you came up with that.
That was just to manage it early so that it doesn't, and again, there hasn't been, and anecdotally, there hasn't been, filamentous algae,
Well, I was more concerned when this was a 4-foot pond than I am when it's a 10-foot pond, to be perfectly frank.
Mm.
Because I thought often sometimes you have things, you actually get growth, and my filamentous, it's the green slime, basically. It often grows on top of the plants or in the open areas.
Mhm.
So, I don't know if you're getting, again, it's a different pond than I had first envisioned when I thought 4 feet average depth, so. You're gonna finding most of it is around gonna be, if this is true, then most of it's gonna be kind of in the areas of the shoreline.
and
Okay.
So
if it's just hanging out around the shoreline in the shallower depths,
that's a real judgment call. I don't know if I would necessarily kick in. I do the water clarity, I'm not sure whether I think the performance algae.
right, yeah, I mean, and I'm saying, if there's filamentous algae just along the direct shoreline.
That's where you'll treat.
That we would likely probably not even treat. We
Okay.
gotta get to that 20%.
You have to decide
Uh,
what's unsightly and what's ecologically impairment.
Okay, great. Anything on algaecide, please?
No.
All right, I think that's kind of the last of the questions that we had left open.
So I had some questions on the chemicals, if we could.
Yeah.
I know these are all EPA approved, but I just want to sort of go through some things from my own notes here. So the diquat is going to bind to this sediment, from what this says. Are there dangers to that?
No, it breaks down. Again, it has a very short half-life as it is. So off the top of my head, I would say it has a half-life of less than 7 days, but again, I don't have the sheets in front of me of them. And so that's breaking down rapidly even. So it does bind with the soil, and then it's still breaking down through its half-life. So it's commonly used throughout Massachusetts, New England for management of invasive species, native pondweed species.
Right.
I don't.
So the one thing that sort of stands out in this fact sheet is the ethylene dibromide. It's a trace contaminant, which is it's a known carcinogen. So it seems to be an incredibly minuscule amount, at least according to this fact sheet. I just don't know what that means. So I need someone more knowledgeable about this to sort of explain to me, where it says that the EPA has evaluated the health risk of its presence in the formulated diquat products. And the maximum level of in diquat dibromide is 10 parts per billion, which seems tiny, and degrades over time and does not persist as an impurity. Is there any comment on that? Dr. Mitchell, do you have any?
I would think that would be a low enough level, and it does break down, so, I mean, they probably have to identify anything as
It's actually,
call it daughter product or something. that
it's
breaks
actually,
down.
it originates in the manufacturing process. It actually isn't part of it.
Oh, it's not, so just the way they produce it, there's
Correct.
gonna be some amounts of it, so.
Yeah,
I guess I don't think that's a disqualifying fact, I mean, it's just something, I think it's more of them being truthful about what's there and such. I think that was used as the fumigant at one time for potato fields, like, I think it was back a
Wow.
long time ago. They don't do that anymore.
yeah, it's been around since '86, so. It says here, on the endothal, that it actually will kill high-value species as well. So how do you propose to target just the nuisance plants?
So the timing of the treatment again, there are no invasive in-water species. We're managing nuisance vegetation that's growing up through the water column. So by the timing of it, we're, actually not so much by the timing, but how it's applied, so when it's heavier than water, so it sinks down.
Right.
And again, we're managing we're not allowed to treat no more than half the water body.
Right.
So we're maintaining half the water body as a no-treat area for any one specific treatment and dosing. Again, whether it's the maximum label rate or it gets backed off to a lesser rate that is susceptible to the species that we're targeting and not so much to all the species present.
I would just comment that it will knock down other species besides the ones you've listed, but all of these species actually would in other
Nuisance in this pond.
circumstances be considered natives and generally good players.
Yeah,
you
sure,
know?
sure. Just
They're
in
not-
this
they're not-
circumstance, they're
In this
nuisance.
circumstances, whatever is making, and again, it's a made pond, it's hard to say exactly what it is.
Yeah.
So it'll knock that down, but I don't see the fact, it's not like you were targeting water milfoil or fanwort and
Right.
you killed all your native species. In this case, it's gonna have a general thing of reducing the overall
Overall,
biovolume.
okay.
And I don't see none of those species is rare and endangered, it's nothing, I wouldn't say anyone is better than another, so, I mean,
They're all pretty.
So it talks about using endothal in a pond, and being careful about excessive decaying. and having it impact the overall oxygen content of the water, so.
Again, we're preventing against that with the treating one half the water body so that where the biovolume is decaying, if there are dissolved oxygen issues, there is refuge for the wildlife to go to that not treated area.
Right.
And so that's how we're preventing against that.
So the one thing, that's the comment here. So here it says no more than 1/3 to 1/2 of the surface should be treated at one time. I know in another one it talks about 50%. So, but this one here is using 1/3 to 1/2. And it also says that the untreated area shouldn't be treated until the vegetation exposed decomposes.
Right. I don't think there will be multiple successive treatments. Again, we're coming out once a month for this, so that process will be. It's not. We wouldn't be going out one day, treating one half, and then following it back up. I know copper-based algaecides have a restriction for.
So how long? So if we do half the pond today, how long will the next treatment on the other half, if we determine
if it's necessary?
If it's necessary.
Likely it would be the next monthly visit. And even then I in my professional experience, I feel like that would be unlikely that we would be treating 2 consecutive months. But at the same time, if we needed to, that's sufficient time for the plant. Most herbicides and algaecides have a 14-day kind of 2-week period to wait between.
The other point to consider is that, say you've treated and it's probably a week later, you turn the aeration system back on.
right?
If you have an aeration system, that would help prevent the dissolved oxygen problem from the decay.
Right. Good point. So here, one of the restrictions is this, not to, if you're using it near drinking water. So, I mean, it talks about this to me. So it talks about this drinking water standard of 0.1 part per million and cannot be applied within 600 feet of a potable water intake. Now, I think the issue raised earlier was we're in a wellhead here, and is there a possibility of groundwater contamination related to this?
No, I would say there's a very, very small chance of, both dicot and endothal bind with the sediment soils and the organic debris and the plants. Secondly, where it talks about potable water intakes, you're directly sticking a straw into here, and that is your drinking. It's not potable.
Yeah, no, I know we're not going to drink the water that's in there.
But wellheads are typically a different. When the EPA typically reviews them, they view potable water intakes as a direct intake into the water body.
I get it.
Well,
Okay. I know. I'm trying to extrapolate it out into we're in an ACEC and a source of a town's water. I'm trying to protect the entire population and to make sure that what's being done here. So
These are large organic molecules. They don't travel far in groundwater. There's too much in the environment.
fantastic.
Laurie, if you go over to where the big water supply, where they're pulling off, one of the places where they pull off the Canoe River Aquifer, if you're going down towards the Cranberry Bogs on Bay Road, and the what's the name of the park? Not the park, where they farm right there. What's the name of that? Wheaton. You go down the road there, and then you go behind the pond in the Cranberry Bogs. There's probably 20 points in there. So that's how they're drawing all out water. And right up against those, again, Cranberry Bogs galore.
We should be
They're all
worried about that
hands.
more than the dicot application. Is that what you're telling me?
Well, also those heads are, those points are sort of up gradient of where this is.
Yeah.
This isn't gonna circle back, I wouldn't believe, to come back up to that area.
Gonna claw back.
This is more going towards the rain
I'll
here.
get a comment from
Where the
Marcy
others-
White.
Thank
From
you.
Jack Walsh, I'll just let him
The other
know
one's going
what's
towards
going on.
Taunton.
So,
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry,
No,
I
it's
did
all right.
spend time actually reviewing these, so.
No, please.
So the imazamox here, the one comment that, now, I think we believe it's gonna be successful here, in treating the common reed with this, but, there's a caution here that says, avoid using the same type of herbicides year after year. I just don't know how long year after year is. I mean, is 3 years reasonable and then we have to switch to something else, or?
So, imazamox is an interesting herbicide, as it can be applied foliarly, and it can also be applied as an in-water concentration. We're not looking to use it as an in-water concentration. We've used imazamox at a number of sites on Phragmites. I'd say we're currently going on 3-ish years, and we haven't seen any resistance to it. I think the resistance they're talking about is to the in-water species, but we haven't seen any resistance develop to the imazamox applications over a period of years.
So the one thing about imazamox, maybe Dr. Mitchell can give me some feedback on this, is its half-life is 2 years. Is that?
I was just reading that, at the very, 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 very deep, dark parts of deep lakes.
So we only have to worry about it as a water application in that case.
That means low oxygen, low temperature conditions. that
Correct.
Don't promote bacterial.
That's exactly what it says, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't think that's
Okay,
applicable.
okay.
I think I added a couple extra deeps in there.
It's okay. No, I understand. I'm just trying to make sure that we're understanding whatever risk there is
All these
available.
No,
chemicals
that's a good
have
point.
some risk, there's no, but they've put it down to a very minimal level of risk.
Yeah.
It's like, nothing is without risk.
All right, so I feel like we've hashed out some pretty good details. Are we gonna be looking for kind of just like a final, I don't know what to call it, a manual or plan, and we'll give eyes on that and talk through it again?
Yeah,
Yeah, we need
I'd
something to-
appreciate the opportunity to get a response
Yeah.
to what we said tonight, and then have Dr. Mitchell review it. And then I think if you're amenable, we can start to put conditions together for the next meeting.
I think that sounds reasonable, you guys.
So the next meeting, we'll have a schedule and everything else ready to,
All the deets.
Sure.
We talked about a water quality monitoring program, we talked about
Could be the next meeting.
Mass DEP license, we talked about a pond application in an ACEC example, so that I can
Yeah.
take a look at the orders
Yeah,
of
we
condition.
went into specifics on what we're testing for, when we're testing, the downstream testing, all that.
Rates,
When you go through the analyses, I think it also would be germane to give us the cost of this, so we can also see what we're asking for.
Yeah.
Make sure
Yeah.
that we're
Yeah.
not just
Yep.
being,
Yeah.
uncaring
I
about it.
imagine he'll take some solace in the fact that you guys were talking about a demonstration that backs off, assuming that certain performance standards are met.
Yeah.
That we'll just have to write those performance standards in.
Any public comment on 150 Foundry Street?
Anybody awake out there?
Seeing none. Would you guys
Charlie
like
must
to
be sick.
continue to our next
I
meeting?
hope Mr. Heath is feeling
Which
okay.
is
21st.
21st on a
21st?
Tuesday.
Tuesday, 21st.
Is there the ability for you to get this stuff to the office and to Dr. Mitchell a week from Wednesday? So that's 15th.
Yeah, yes.
Great, perfect. So you'll have it on the 15th.
All right, so motion to continue 150 Foundry Street to our May 21st meeting.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
very much,
Thanks, guys.
When's the first week of camp?
Thank you.
June 24th.
yeah.
Okay.
Have a good trip.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you guys.
You're
Thanks, Dr.
ordering
Mitchell.
things to get me out.
Yeah.
Take it easy,
Yeah, I know
Dan.
that was a long one.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Dan.
Appreciate it. All right, we got a whole bunch of Foundry Streets: 468R, 560, 568, 582, 584 Foundry Street.
The old foundry site.
For those in such detail. I meant to.
mind signing in over there?
This is your
Yeah.
first hearing, so do you have, a butter?
Yeah, that's nice, yeah.
Right, oh,
Yeah.
it is.
It was a really interesting conversation we had, but I apologize for being so long.
Yeah, sorry.
Can you guys repeat what you were saying?
Do you have any coffee?
You can catch it in about 2 days.
Link that
Thank you
as
very much.
everything.
Can we? Oh, yes, sorry.
For the record, Jonathan Novak, Conoco Engineers and Scientists.
And Matthew Varro from Lucas Environmental.
Welcome. When you guys are all signed in, please take us through your project.
I just want to point out, thank you very much. Oh, yes, and there were some that he had I wrote exhibits, I need those for the record.
There's another one.
There's the second one. Exhibit 1 and Exhibit 2.
Were they different or were they?
Yeah, they were different,
Oh, one was the depths.
yeah. I don't
Like
know,
if you're blindly following.
one says Exhibit 1, the other one says Exhibit 2.
One of those guys that's always read to the end of the test.
Exhibit two.
So, for the record, this is a project where the application fee was used to have a peer review. And the application was submitted in February. We had the peer reviewers from Beta Engineering go out. They got some different results, so I asked to go out with Lucas Environmental and Beta Engineering, and they had a really productive conversation on site, which resulted in a revised plan submitted. Beta can't be here tonight, but you've had a chance to review their comments.
Yeah.
Okay, that was my introduction. Go ahead.
Pretty straightforward. Old Founders site. We're doing an ANRAD on it. We've identified all of the appropriate resource areas. The original ANRAD, there were some concerns about the accuracy of the locations in some of the spots. We actually went out between the original submission and the current set of plans and relocated everything with an on-the-ground survey. We had previously used a handheld device that said it was accurate, but apparently it's not as accurate as the salesman told us it was. So
Calibrated like a laser gun?
yeah. So all
Off
of
by
the
12 feet.
yeah. So all
Yeah.
and the accuracies that popped up was, everything was within 2 or 3 feet. So the most recently revised plan is based on an on-the-ground survey, so the April 30th plan set. There we have a response letter to the review from Beta, which I believe the majority of the issues are we either acknowledge or have revised. What we'd like to do is see if there's any concerns from the board on the flagging or any of the plans, address those issues along with a couple of the remaining comments with Beta in the field, and then come back at the next hearing and kind of close it out. So
Well, I'm having trouble pulling up the plan online.
Here's, that's the big plan. Can you see?
I have half size.
There you
and
go.
Do you guys want?
Perfect.
No, I can,
Anybody? I got plenty. I got anybody else?
sure.
I'd like a small set for the.
I'll-
I can also.
If you like to copy these, I can get them copied. I can get an extra set for you. Oh, then you have to get
Yeah.
it.
So I guess I will defer to Andrew's commentary first of all on this. I'm assuming you've laid eyes on the updated plans, Andrea?
Yes, and I've laid, and more importantly, the response to comments that came with them. I think what you're asking is, there is 2 main streams coming down this property. One is the stream from New Pond, and the other is the stream from Old Pond. So Mulberry Brook and Beaver Brook both come from this property. They're obviously perennial, and nobody's questioning that. And so there's floodways along those. There's significant floodways along both those streams. That's not part of the ANRAD. But then there are 9 different vegetated wetlands. And 3 of them are bordering vegetated wetlands associated with those streams, and the other 6 are isolated. More importantly, out in the field, Lucas, why aren't you doing this? Why am I doing this?
I'm happy to do whatever you like.
Yeah. So yeah, I've been out there and I have looked at the plants, but there are 3 potential vernal pools in this complex. There's a lot of wetland in this complex.
Lots of lines.
Lots of lines, lots of wetlands, lots of area. Some of it is, it's all on site though. You didn't do anything off site.
Correct. Yeah, and certainly this was a challenging site to delineate because we did it last fall when we were in the midst of the record rainfall. So it was a lot of sloshing around in flooded areas, but still determining, based on the vegetation, the soils, meeting the criteria where they were. And but I think, based on Beta's review of it, I think, we got it pretty well. We didn't really make too many adjustments out in the field for the isolated or the bordering vegetated wetlands.
And how's it going with the potential vernal pools? There was agreement in the field as to where they might be.
Yeah, so we've been out sort of since that original discussion with Beta as far as kind of the scope of which areas we were going to look at. And we did find evidence of breeding amphibians in sort of the southernmost portion of area of wetland A, and then within wetland E, sort of somewhat 2 discrete areas in there. And then we had looked at wetland F for potential, don't feel there's any potential there. And there was a secondary area in wetland A that Beta had asked us to look at. And again, a lot of their initial observations were in winter when there was still a lot of snow and ice. So when we went out that secondary in wetland A, we really didn't find there was really hardly any standing water at all in that area. So we kind of discounted that, but there is a fairly significant area, as I said, in the southern portion of wetland A.
They're kind of like peninsula.
Yeah, right at the very bottom. It's kind of that not quite isolated area. And that was, so it's really A and 2 areas in wetland E are the 2. The other isolated wetlands really don't have a lot of standing water in them. They had a lot more standing water last fall than they do this spring, if you can believe it.
Yeah, surprising. So it's a strong complex. You're in the Hockomock Swamp ACEC. You all call this the old foundry site. If you're looking at the main, I'm looking at the main overall site. So the old foundry site is between A and D, and above C. And so you can see that the wetland areas are more to the west of that. A lot of the wetland areas are more to the west of that.
And certainly wetland A has significant alterations from the historic use of the property. The stream channels have been culverted. There's been a lot of manipulation over the last how many ever years the foundry was there. But the further west you go, things are a bit more naturalized. One other area that I will mention that Beta had called out that we did add for flagging was over in wetland C. There was an additional intermittent stream channel that I think is really more characterized as sort of a ditch. Again, it was sort of looked like a man-made attempt to drain wetland C. They had asked that we flag that and characterize that so that we could have the proper setbacks. So we did go out and add those additional flags.
And that's not, you know, the stream that's across from New Pond.
No.
No,
It's
in between.
Go to the next sheet. It's that one right there.
Yeah.
That's the additional.
Yeah, so it's right at the,
There's
that one right there. Yeah. So it doesn't even, there's no culvert at the top underneath Foundry Street. It just kind of, like I said, it's more of a ditch than anything. But it does certainly convey flow at portions of the year.
New Pond's still further west.
So what time, what kind of time do you need to do the further inspections, and you wanna coordinate with Beta to go back out?
Yeah, I think I was going out with Beta and really looking, I don't think there's gonna be a lot of question that the areas within wetland A and wetland E, there's certainly vernal pool habitat there. I think it's more of talking about, you know, what's sort of the limits as far as the actual viable habitat. Again, especially where we've had so much flooding over the past 6 months.
Yep.
Just kind of coming to agreement on where we're gonna say, okay, this is the edge of sort of the mean annual high water, so that we can show the appropriate setback from that.
And, that's great, and while you're doing that, the boundary, even for a potential vernal pool, is 100 feet from
Yeah.
that's the boundary before you get into a buffer zone. So be looking for what kind of wildlife, evaluate, you can do, I know you can do, the wildlife evaluation of that area, because, if you need waivers, then you're gonna need to know, which sections have higher quality wildlife than other sections. Okay, so yes, it could be a potential vernal pool, and it seems to have this kind of wildlife activity, and it tends to be more to the northeast and the southwest than it is to this area. So it gives them a little ability to understand impacts if you're gonna get close to 200 feet from the water line, which you're likely to get. They're extremely lucky that they filed during potential vernal pool season.
Isn't it not even really there yet, though, with the,
No, we're past the big night.
okay.
Yeah, we're certainly, the pools I've looked at most recently, most of the egg masses have hatched out now.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, we're-
Because I know it's been cold at night and with the rain flow.
That's because you come from Florida.
True.
That's because you're going.
So you're saying I brought all the eggs up from Florida and put them in there?
No, we're saying, why didn't you bring the warm weather with you?
I don't know why.
I'm not gonna take that bait.
Nice
So what were
guys.
the areas that Nova is Beta?
It's Bader now, but it was Caitlin Nover.
Okay, yeah. Had identified as potential vernal pool areas.
Same as
Yeah, that's southern area of A. And I
is it
checked-
Matt?
Yep.
Matt.
Yep.
Southern area of A. F, you guys checked out, both there was nothing there.
Yep.
And
E, yeah.
You said that there were two distinct areas, or discrete areas in
Two
E?
and a
Yeah, within E, there's sort of a larger area in the southern portion, and then it looks like there's an
Oh,
old, like,
kinda like
cart
these
path that crosses.
little-
Yeah,
Contours there?
yeah.
Okay. And what were the thoughts there?
As far as the habitat?
Yeah.
Yeah, we found egg masses in both those areas.
Okay.
Yeah. And then the other area in wetland A was sort of more to the north of that, you know, sort of the lower area, sort of the northeast a little bit.
Do these contours like represent, like, is this higher than down here? Or,
You're looking at contours.
oh yeah, 'cause just looking.
Yeah,
what's
so
the mass of the mountain
right,
depression?
right here, this is a high point and it slopes down and slopes down. So this is,
So, over here in A, I guess is what I'm,
yeah,
like this,
Okay, so,
contour line here, and then that
Where's
one
A?
here, is this like going downhill?
This is pretty much all flat, this is all flooded and flattened, so this
Okay.
contour kinda carries it all the way around.
Okay, alright, so this is pretty well plateaued
Yeah.
up in here.
Yeah, so this whole area was pretty well flooded.
okay.
And then the other area in A that they had asked to look at, I think, was sort of up in this area.
Yeah.
Which was on a bit of a slope, so there really wasn't a depression for the water to go to. So really,
So you gotta go
all
100
the
feet off of
water
this from the-
in wetland A
doing
is
it.
either going into a culvert and
Watch what happens
going out of A,
with that.
or coming down to the
Just, they're
bottom
gonna
of A
lose
here
all
and
this.
basically get impounded.
Okay, so we have basically 3 PVP potential whirlpools.
It's listed in, you have a copy in your, online, but you also
That's the
have,
riverfront, so it's the
their
same
response to
thing.
comments.
They're all
No, you
in that
don't
little
have their
tiny
response,
thing.
it's posted. In the posting, they do identify these
you might
areas.
hard copy of that.
Oh, yeah.
E?
Yeah.
Some of us are ancient, so bring hard copies to everything.
I appreciate it.
Oh, right there, got it,
Sometimes
got it,
technology
okay.
goes on the fritz and
Ooh.
Boom,
you're stuck.
yeah. So, the next meeting's the 21st. Is it likely that you could connect before then, or should?
We're ready to go whenever Beta is, so, as long, depending on what their schedule is.
If they're together, then we don't have to worry about the response back and forth.
Right, I like that. Efficient. Do you guys have anything you want to?
Well, yeah, the board knows this has been all rezoned, this area. This is compact
This
zoning.
is compact neighborhood
Yeah,
zoning.
and it'll probably be tying in, I know it'll be tying into the sewer there, obviously.
Right.
Yeah, the pump station is
Yeah.
actually on the property. So.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, yeah.
Speaking to that, the planning board, after the ANRAD is done,
Mhm.
the planning board would like to have a joint site inspection with the Conservation Commission.
Oh, that's nice.
There's an area where, the two sections of the development, there'd be a value to connecting a path between the two, and it's conservation land.
Mm.
So they wanna get that out in the field with you,
Wow.
after the ANRAD.
Anything other than the weekend?
Anything but the
Did-
weekend?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, that's
paintball season.
Yeah, no, that's the best for me, but hey,
Yeah.
or other people say, hey, they wanna do the weekend.
Well, no, but we're getting into the time of year where it gets it's lighter at the end of the day.
Matt,
Right.
was D a vernal pool or no?
No.
No.
No, we looked at that one.
Okay, so that's not, okay. And what about, and C was not either, or was it?
A very lively.
So C is really the
On the
very
west.
large wetland that has the perennial stream associated with
It's a
it.
beautiful property
Yeah.
to walk.
So
Yeah.
that really didn't,
I know,
I
across the
agree.
street.
Really no sort of distinct depressions within C.
Going back that way.
But no egg masses or
Exactly.
anything, or?
No,
Gotta go.
there really wasn't, the standing water in there is the perennial stream, which every time I've been out there, it's flowing really
Okay.
well. Expecting to see
Everything.
salmon running up it.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
oh.
no, seriously, these are probably the two biggest in
I don't
town.
think I'd be paying for any of those.
Okay. You guys looking for anything else for us for now? or-
Just if, again, the whole goal was to have a quick overview, because we
Yeah.
know we've continued it quite a few times. Wanted to, again, if there were any concerns, we would address them in the field with Nova at the next time, and then, or at the next hearing, just wrap it up and.
Yeah, I think as Andrea noted, paying attention to coming from the potential vernal pools, the areas of the wetlands that are gonna have the highest value, to the critters.
Oh, yeah,
Would be a good reference
Like
point
them,
for
yeah.
potentially conditioning, I think.
I think so, getting them and hashing out in the field with them and,
Yeah.
work together to a consensus and
Yeah, these guys were impressive,
Yeah.
out in the field.
good plan, works for me.
Continue?
Yeah.
Next meeting, 21st?
It's a
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
I'll speak to, I actually spoke to them anticipating tonight, they had scheduling conflicts, but, so they know to be on board. It's gonna require, we're probably gonna have to ask for a, cost estimate. We're gonna get a new task order from them. You might
Okay.
have to do a second. Oh, no, this project is going off the fees, because the NRED fees are done by linear foot.
Ouch.
So,
Yeah, there's a couple feet out there. So.
Yeah.
yeah, so there's still room in the fees to work off of this one.
Boy.
He was like, wait a minute, huh? Okay.
Yeah.
Any public comment on Old Foundry? Seeing none, motion to continue all the foundries to 468R, 560, 568, 582R, and 584 Foundry Street to our next meeting Tuesday, May 21st.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Thank you
guys.
for your time.
Appreciate
Good
the
job,
input.
thank
Couple
you.
weeks.
See ya.
I'll work through you, Jonathan.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, for the.
For build out area there.
Setting up the site visit.
Oh.
You guys wanna talk together, right? Do you want me there?
It's gonna be like that.
Entirely up to you if you wanna be there, it's
That's
fine.
why we're saying.
Well, it's darn fun, but do you need me?
Alex, it was right
No, I
here.
think we'll come to
Right
a
here.
consensus
On
on
the
I mean,
PVPs.
based on the first site visit.
Yeah,
But I thought he said.
pretty straightforward.
E, which
Yeah.
is
Okay,
running-
very good, thank
There
you.
were two spots in E.
But it's running like, that's E going like that, all the way, like that, right?
Yeah.
Cause he's stopping it right there.
How many total acres is it?
Oh,
28 or something.
oh, I'm sorry, I should know that.
No, was it 28, I think?
Yeah, it's,
Yeah, did I call you? 284 Foundry Street?
Oh, anyway.
You can let me know on that.
Thanks for hanging in there.
I will. I should know
We'll
that.
have donuts and coffee ready in the morning.
Hey, I got a bet with the guys out there, gonna be a minute apiece, so, whatever you can do for me.
Abutter notices.
Yeah, you get those right here.
For the record, you
I do
are,
have- My name's Dave Clennett from Collins Civil Engineering Group,
Thank you, sir.
and I have, advertisement here for you. If you
yeah,
want it.
thank you. We don't, we
This is
need,
an
swear
RDA, request for determination of applicability, for, 284 Foundry Street. And, this is a, we have the stream in the rear of the property, we have the green line showing the wetland line, the 50-foot buffer in the orange, and the 100 in the blue. And of course, we have a 100-foot, our, riverfront area and the 200 riverfront, area in, dash blue. And the system itself is gonna be completely outside the 100-foot, so we're asking for an RDA. We've gotta put the silt fence within, 83 feet of the wetlands, only to, we're gonna have to dig out this septic area here, and, we're gonna need some room to maneuver in here around the driveway.
Yeah, you're well outside the 50.
Yeah, well outside the 50.
Mm-hmm.
The silt fence is gonna go from the house, right out to the property line and up to the road. This is gonna be a tight area, so everything's gonna
Yeah.
be remove and replace. There's really no place for stockpiling at all, so.
Oh, you're just gonna use the
Yeah,
driveway?
we're just gonna be taking it out.
Okay.
It is a busy road there, so we'll have to be careful about that, but there's not much we can do.
Oh, you're building it over the existing.
Yeah, we're building it over the existing system.
Well, yeah, where
I
else
don't,
are you
I
gonna
don't even
put
know
it?
if there's another spot to put it on this.
Yeah.
property.
I really don't think that there is.
No, it
on
doesn't
this
look like
site.
it.
No.
Okay.
Dave, when was this system, the original one built?
Back in the 80s.
So this has a 25-foot sand all the way around it, massive
Yeah,
sand,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so back the old previous law was they wanted to do a 25-foot strip out until new laws came with DEP says it's only 5 feet because it wasn't even going out that way, it was contaminating the soils. So all these systems that were put in back in the 80s,
Yeah.
this, you could do about 5 septic
And
systems
you
with the
think
sand.
about it, it lasted a good long time. It was back in the 80s, it's over 30 years.
Yeah.
So.
But none of the sand is getting, it doesn't break out, it's all, septic systems have been redesigned because everything goes through the bottom, not through the sides, where we used to be allowed sidewall, and now it's this bottom area. So this is, by putting it in that area there,
Okay.
it's gonna be,
It's gonna be sandy.
it's gonna be all perk sand,
Yeah.
which is nice.
Nice.
Yeah.
Did we get, was there any National Heritage letter on this?
yes, there was. They determined that the project will not adversely affect, because it's exempt. They determined that it wouldn't adversely affect the natural heritage.
Right,
The
right here.
wanted to, yes, there you go.
Wouldn't,
And it's
wouldn't
exempt
affect the
from
rare.
MESA.
Because it's in the grassed area, is that why, Andrew?
Yeah, it's in a previously
Previously
disturbed area.
Okay, gotcha.
I'm good.
I'm good.
You guys?
Good.
Alright.
One question?
Maybe.
It's an RDA. We don't usually sue these sites. Do you want permanent markers?
Yeah, I noticed that.
We don't provide permanent markers on there for you on this plan, but we can certainly do that if it's, if you wanna write it up as part of your,
Yeah, just along the existing woodland.
sure.
It's upland wetland edge.
Woodland edge.
Upland,
Upland
Remember
wetland
that, that's what
edge.
it's called, not
Woodland.
woodland, upland.
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 Straight chair.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Let's see. Yeah, we're talking about the green line.
Yeah.
yeah, it's wooded there, and then, there's, the wood line comes out a little bit,
Yeah.
and we could probably put some right along here if you wanted, where it's in the lawn.
Yeah. I do, what's the
Just
scale on
reminder,
this?
just reminder not to go any farther than Jerry
Right.
has.
Yeah.
1 inch equals 20
I
feet.
think she goes right up to that.
Dave, is the lawn right up to the,
Yeah, the wooded area right here.
okay.
Yeah, she pretty much does that, and, you know, I mean, even if we came out a little bit, if you wanted to. just-
Yeah, like-
Might be smart, just
Is
to
it- is it
educate her,
about
yeah.
200 feet wide?
Yeah, every 25 feet, or just.
Or like every 50 feet, or?
Yeah, if we do it right along here and not into the woods, I mean, where we could go,
I'd go 25 because it's got such a curve to it.
Yeah, every
I
25
would,
feet.
I'd go 20, that's not a big deal. How wide's the lot, 170
yeah,
feet,
yeah,
150
yeah,
feet?
that'd be like 4 markers.
Yeah,
4
yeah.
markers.
Yeah.
All right, any public comment on 284 Foundry Street? Seeing none, would you like to close?
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, it's pretty great, it's amazing that they did that.
So it's an RDA, so we can say it's jurisdictional, but we're gonna issue a negative RDA, and we're gonna condition it, okay. So a motion to find that the proposed work is jurisdictional by the commission, but it's not gonna affect the resource areas, so we will issue a negative determination, request for determination of applicability, with the condition that they place at least 4, permanent markers along the lawn edge.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, sir.
Sorry, that
Sorry
was
for the
not,
wait.
that was not a trick. I didn't mean to make that a trick.
Hmm?
No.
It's very good though.
No idea.
All right.
Definitely.
I don't know.
Oh, you have one more. 15 Deborah Lee Lane.
I don't know how it started.
Welcome back.
Mm.
Quick commute.
I have the advertisement and the cards here, this is a full notice of intent.
Do you, did you win your bet?
No, but that's okay, we move that much. If we make this 15 seconds, yes.
That's not gonna work on
Did
this
you-
one.
Did you Andrew's staff notes on this one?
Yes, I did. Yeah, I actually, I don't think I had them.
We'll save them on the back.
It is on Thursday.
Yeah.
Did you receive the waiver request?
Mm.
I didn't notice, no.
Alright, so I got I can give you the waiver request.
It came in
The
today.
waiver letter?
I just
It
got
was
a copy.
posted.
I just got a copy.
That's
It's posted, so.
The waiver request is posted?
Yeah,
Okay, do you need a hard copy?
I got it.
Okay.
I handed her
Something
mine.
happened, somebody else. I don't understand. Here you go, buddy.
Thank you.
All right, why don't you tell us about the
So,
project?
once again, my name's Dave Clennon from Collins Civil Engineering Group, and, this is a septic repair for 15, Deverly Lane, off of Rockland Street. It's a good sized house, and it has a pool and a paved area for a basketball court. There is a pool here that's, I guess we're calling it a potential runoff pool, it's full of water. It goes right up to the bank, it's very prevalent, and you can see it clearly from the street. The only reason that we're, going so close to it is we need access to get back there. There's no access on the, side here, between the retaining walls and the house and everything else. We have to go around the house the other way. It's pretty much the only way, that we can get in now. So, what we're gonna do is we're proposing a silt fence that starts here at Deborah Lane, and just gives us enough room to get by the corner of the house, by the corner of the pool, and in the back. And then, of course, we're gonna go around this paved basketball area, come back up here, all the way around the limit of work to the fence here, which is just about the 100-foot buffer, or the 50-foot buffer to, it's a little confusing.
Yeah, you guys don't really have very much space there.
There's
Yeah.
there's very little space at all. This is gonna be a pump system, the material wasn't that great out there, it was a small leaching pit
Mhm.
right where the system is now. And, we have a stockpile area. The owner, on their behalf, would like to remove the impervious basketball court as part of this project. And that would be as mitigation for, working so close. I know that the state, really encourages that.
Mhm.
If you can remove impervious, they count that as mitigation and low impact developments. And, they're willing to do that on their own dollar, to just take out that and then just loan seed it. So we wouldn't have that kind of encroachment to that pond area, as there is now. They do have the markers that we're proposing all along the pond area, coming right up to the fence area here. So really, anything inside the fence would not be touched afterwards. And I did get Andrea's notes here. And there was some kind of leaf pile or something that was out there as well. Is that
Between the fence line
between the fence
and the
line?
4-5, there's some old remnants of fence sections
Okay.
and debris.
We could actually have them remove that by hand if you wanted to and get that out of
Where are
there.
those?
It's right in the way of the construction.
Yeah, I
access.
think it's like right in here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
There was anything else in the drawing?
I think that.
We did supply a waiver to work, within the buffer zone of the pool.
So in eliminating the basketball court, that, that does, that does provide some public interest compensation. The question is whether or not you wanted to move the, whether or not you wanted to naturalize any more of the area around the PVC, the potential vernal pool, because it is grass all the way around until you get to flag number 3, and then it's just a slope,
Yeah, it's kind of a.
and so that's kind of naturalized
So
there.
you're talking about, like, this is all lawn?
Yeah,
This is all, it's all
almost
lawn.
right up,
P3?
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
like a foot of vegetation between the edge of the lawn and the edge of the
Dave,
pool.
did anybody, did any of the excavators look at this plan yet?
No excavators have looked at it, but, we could have,
No, the only reason I'm looking at it is, you're prepping this to go up and around the whole area to get in there to
that's
truck
right.
out and all that?
Yeah.
Well, just stupid question, why wouldn't you just drive back up in the driveway and just live load from there?
There's a 83 to a.
No, well, I'm saying if your truck is in the driveway, which it's going from
Right here, yeah.
75, or 78, up to, the truck would be sitting here where it's like at 82 or whatever. Obviously that tree, if it was taken down, the excavator could come right up, and this fence was removed. Would the excavator be able to come up here and just live load it?
I'm not,
And the excavator could set the tanks and they could remove the material and live load. I'm
yeah.
looking to try to save them some money, because if that was the case,
I'm not an expert when it comes to the construction of these things.
Yeah.
So I can't tell you if there's gonna, I couldn't say it's gonna be cheaper for an excavator to come in and work around that. I think that's a pretty good sized tree that they have to take down.
yeah.
Which I prefer not to right away.
Well, I'm looking at all that disturbance, what they're gonna be doing and fixing it, and the tree's probably gonna cost $2,000 to get rid of if it's a big tree like you're saying. And, but there'd be no disturbance barely in the 100-foot buffer, it'd just be for the tanks,
That is-
etc.
Yeah, that is, I can't see it happening, Bill, with all those steps and concrete walks there.
Yeah.
It just, and there's a lot of steps there too. It'd just be.
Naturalize a lot of 5 feet.
Just sort of,
What we can
it's,
do is,
Replan.
and
So
this is
start
a
and
discussion,
free.
but I didn't wanna bring it up because there's
Leave a
no
5-foot buffer
agreement.
and either just
Yeah.
let it grow or throw
But
it to conservation.
We are talking to the neighbor to see if we can access
I
through
would
that
do a
way.
double round.
oh, on, this is lot 173?
Yeah, but there's no agreement, so I didn't wanna bring it up.
Oh.
Staggered them 6 feet.
But I'll let you guys know that there are talks going on there.
Sure. That is well.
Dave, the only thing that worries me about this here is, you're getting back there, you're working in that area. But taking in all that material, so you can't put trailers in there, you need these triaxles, which
Commission review.
the weight on those things are gonna sink
He said
into
in the thing
your
that it
water-
was before.
Yeah.
level
Yeah,
that's in here, you said it's holding water. So what's that, around 176 water?
Yeah.
Yeah, so these trucks are coming down here, and they're
Yeah.
5-6 feet above the water table. Those things are gonna go,
Oh, okay,
We might, we
The only
might
one
say
that might
that
be
might be a loading
that's
area, and we'll just keep
addition, the house
keep the
addition.
machines there, the Bobcats and the backhoes.
How deep you go down? 4 feet I saw, and
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
what's this, how far is it coming above the ground?
Well, it's gonna be a cone system, so it's gonna be 181 there, 182, so you're actually 180 here, so 2 feet on this side and flush on this side,
Oh, good.
so.
So, and
It's
what,
not too bad.
how big is the overall? I'm just trying to determine how much material's coming out.
It's 34 by 48, so.
Okay. I just do it for my own head, just to see how much material they're coming out. Maybe it won't be that much trucking.
Did you discuss with the applicant at all potentially, the potential for us asking for them to kind of renaturalize like a 5 to 10 foot buffer between the start of the flags and flag
They
3?
thought that the mitigation of removing the impervious inside was adequate for them.
Mhm.
And they're doing that on their own dollar, I might add. And that's not a cheap thing to do, to remove and to bring up to plant. So they didn't offer any mitigation other than that. And I tell you, that's a huge thing with the state. It's a huge thing. If you can remove impervious inside a buffer zone, that's what they want you to do. So they're doing this on their
But
own.
do we know when the basketball court went in?
In the 80s, I believe, or 70s,
Was
actually.
it the basketball court that went in back then?
So the question, since you're at that point, you're like within 5 feet of the,
No, we said
of
the house, pool, and addition were 70, 83, and 88, so we don't have dates on the basketball court. Because if that went in unconditioned, then it should be out anyways, but I don't know
But
how,
there's
I don't
no
know how
order
old
to
it
take it
is.
out, so they're gonna they wanna do it, they wanna take it out, so.
Right, but I'm saying if it, yeah.
But, I mean, let's, for those of us that visit the site, that has to come out. There's erosion happening in one of the, like a quarter of the court is unusable. There's two huge sinkholes in the court.
Oh, yeah,
I
and
mean,
they do wanna take it out,
Yeah.
and for those reasons too, but they, that could stay there and just be like that. I mean, unless the board gave them an enforcement order, which you would have to prove that,
Right. Do we know why it's eroding there?
just because of the water table and the area.
And the
of
soils.
The soils.
Mm.
They just probably didn't put a good base in, thinking that they could just go right over what was there.
since you're moving the fence through a good section of that for the site access, are they thinking of replacing the fence?
Yes,
Is it possible to move the fence off that to get rid of that squared off corner?
oh, yeah, maybe, I think that would be applicable to that.
Andrea, also, I just did the calcs on it. It's about 280 yards is coming into it, which isn't that much. It's not gigantic.
That sort can be moved with a backhoe, right? I mean.
Loader, you'd use a loader. Yeah, a loader, yeah.
I mean, they could put down plates, I'm sure they could put down boards or
Well,
at least boards.
Yeah, if you just put down 3/4 inch board, you'd be.
And like I said, if we can
Or
access
or
this
just,
through the
or
other
even
way, through the,
somewhere, get
Yeah.
rid of that
neighbors,
corner.
we would definitely come back and let you guys know.
Oh,
They actually have the landscapers
But they're
use
not
these rubber
pulling this
mats for their
area
machines that are
Yeah,
They
awesome.
can,
yeah.
they said they can.
Yukon uses them, but that would be the way to
It's in
do it.
bed
Just
with
bring in a loader with like a,
In great shape.
I don't know, like a 5-yard bucket.
So you could
kick that.
establish a distance off that PV, that flag 8, is that distance, I'm looking, what do you think the distance is, maybe 5 feet
Yeah,
personally?
that's a 20 scale, so, maybe,
Maybe 10?
yeah, maybe 10.
So you can take that corner next to PV,
I would say, yeah,
7 and
maybe-
8,
maybe
and
right
you can
here,
push
just
those
cut it
up,
straight across and,
and then naturalize it.
naturalize it. Just let it grow naturally.
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, we can even plant a wetland mix there.
I was gonna say, yeah, maybe there, since we're ripping it up, and
We'll
Ripping up
just
the
plant
pavement.
wetland mix there right away.
put some wetland mix down.
Mr. Chair, what if it's underneath that there is actual still topsoil all underneath that? You never know who put this thing in.
Yep.
But what if it is there and it possibly can get the vegetation as we've seen happen in the previous?
Yeah, but we haven't seen that come from something that was totally covered. for
No,
who knows how
I'm
many
just,
years.
you know,
Well,
I'm
it's a good
just
thought.
concerned about, you
I
put
don't
that
know- I don't
wetland
know
mix
the answer
down,
to that
you put
question.
that wetland mix down, and if it doesn't work with hydrology and all that, it's just,
Well, so a
Well,
natural,
we
a
would
natural seed mix, we'll just,
We would definitely bring in the loam and seed to fill up the hole that's created
Yeah.
by the, and then you'd have, at least a good, at a minimum of 6 inches there. So, I think,
Okay.
And we can put a, you know, it's gonna be an NOI, so we can put a date on it to, have a,
No.
1 year.
I just see the guy spending all this money to put in the seed, isn't that much money, and then all of a sudden, everything that's
Yeah.
in the area just takes it over. So I guess that would just stabilize it, and then,
It's
Whatever's
will
there, we take it
because
over.
The wetland plants grow right along that.
Right,
line
right.
there. They'll
that's
take it
gonna,
over.
definitely gonna happen, yeah.
This is really, actually, looks good.
So Andrew, you're thinking when you plant the seed, what'll happen is it'll stabilize,
Imagine the
and then the
basketball
species, the wetland species will come up and go
Oh,
through
that'll
it
take
probably,
it.
right?
That'd be fine,
Yeah.
yeah, that'd be
Yeah.
fine.
think
I
I'd still like
didn't,
to see
it
strip
is,
along the CP
there
in the
is
front.
less of a grade there. If you wanna take,
Maybe-
a
maybe just-
plan and identify where the fence can be
But-
relocated, we
Just
can
let it
use
grow.
that as the plan of record.
Stop cutting.
Yeah, well, actually, I'm just thinking, if you guys agree with me, maybe taking where it cuts off at an angle here, and
Is that-
just go straight across.
Is that okay with you guys?
Mm-hmm.
And naturalize behind that?
Cool.
So,
Great.
it's a nice fence there too, so we'll probably just be able to just relocate that fence as it is.
Yeah, they're not, the poles,
I'm good with it.
they're very good now. Oh, there's so much water.
Are you guys, would you guys be open to ask them to just not mow within, 5-10 feet of the potential vernal, or of the water body in the
Yeah.
front of the yard between the start and flag 3? Just
Yeah.
not plant anything, not throw anything, just let it grow.
let it
'Cause,
grow.
from
Yeah.
what I've read, any buffer is hugely positive impact.
It is.
And
It's,
It is.
it's, there's active wildlife in
Yeah.
that pond, I can assure
yeah,
you.
so just yeah.
We'll,
There are
if you
frogs
wanna
hopping
put,
all over the
If
place.
you wanna
So
put
I
a
saw-
statement that says we put the signs 10 or 50, or whatever buffer you want, we'll put those points at that point.
Move the
That's a great
permanent
idea.
marker.
All right, so yeah, we'll do permanent
You
markers.
got 1,
10
2?
Maybe just in that front area, we'll do 10 feet off of each flag.
Yeah.
Just so that way it's well defined right there. Because they're not mowing right up to the water body
No, they're
where the
not.
fence
It's
is.
kinda like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's kind of where this tree is, it cuts across.
I'm cool with that.
All right, so I'm gonna say allow 10 feet from flags 0 through 3 to revegetate. Have we said in the past? I forget exactly, but cut it down once a year in certain situations, or do we
Usually.
just leave it?
Yeah, usually it's once a year, but that's
What time of year?
because after the breeding season,
Yeah.
so the late fall. But, this is gonna take a while before it gets to be
Looks
anything
completely-
woody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's to get rid of the woodies,
Yeah.
and it's gonna take a while before it gets that.
Yeah. So we'll say they may mow that strip once a year in the late fall. So that way, I guess it's not out of
After a
control.
couple of years growing season or something like that, to let it establish.
Okay, yeah, so after 2 growing seasons. Okay, that sounds good. Dan, anything else on this one?
I'm fine.
Bill?
Good.
Mike?
Good solution.
I'm good.
Would you like to close?
Yeah.
Alright. Any public comment on 15 Deverly Lane?
Revised plan.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll just do contingent upon receipt of revised plan.
Can we do,
Condition,
conditioned on?
yes, that's
Yeah.
what you meant to say.
Yeah, that's what I meant to say, yeah.
I don't wanna come back, guys.
Oh, come on! I know, especially after tonight, you gotta, the wait list is long. Alright, so, motion to issue permit to work order conditions and waiver for 15 Deverly Lane with the items noted in the staff report and the additional conditions that they're gonna cut the fence, across, they're gonna reestablish the fence after they pull up the basketball court across, as we talked about in the plan, today. And this condition, this approval is contingent upon us receiving the updated plan. Also, they will be allowing the area that the basketball court took up outside of the newly established fence line to naturalize, and we'll put down some conservation natural seed mix. In addition, from the wetland flag 0 through 3, we are requiring a 10-foot no-cut buffer zone, 10 feet from each flag. We will put a. Sorry, I'm all jumbled in my head today. I'm going to rewind and restart that portion of it. Additionally, from wetland flag 0 through 3, we are going to establish a 10-foot buffer to the water body and placing permanent markers 10 feet from each flag 0, 1, 2, 3. And after 2 growing seasons, they may mow that 10-foot buffer strip once per year in the late fall.
Nailed it.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Yeah, you too, thanks.
Alright, what we got next? 519, 37, 65, and 573R Washington Street.
Also known as Quissit Commons.
Oh, yeah.
Queesit.
We got ahead of that.
Tim McCall.
Quissit.
Did he have a
Massa
funny way
po-
of saying
Massa po-
Quanticut too?
Massapoag.
Did he have something with the Quanticut?
You're next.
Yeah, you had him say
He had something.
That was from Brockton.
I know, it's not like it was from France.
Yeah.
What's the plan?
The Navy did something to him. It changed him.
Alright, so we're in here for an extension request.
Why not?
What kind of bet did you have going out there?
Whoa. We'll see. See if I can win.
Denied
Well, actually out there.
Who's the bookie?
Really?
So this project had a permit issued. Oh, you know?
I didn't say anything.
Okay.
If you could just introduce yourself in the recording, please.
My name's Sam Schofield. I'm from Douglas A. King Builders, here upon permanent extension for Queesit Commons 40
Thanks,
R
sir.
project.
Alright, why don't you take us through your request? Or the details.
These details.
Details.
This order of conditions, we had a superseding order of conditions that came out in 2012. That was going to be expiring in 2015. Then it was under the Permanent Extension Act, was put out to June 1st of 2019. What presently is coming up. So we're submitting for a 3-year extension.
Somebody's having fun.
Somebody has a mini cop
Yeah,
car.
mini, but
Alright.
So, you last saw it as an amendment?
Yep.
Second amendment for a trail. As these guys have done in the past, when you asked for an extension, they gave us a status report. And they've completed their wetland restoration by the bridge, which got a partial certificate of compliance.
Yeah.
They, have done the wetland restoration to the west, and the turtle, nesting area has been established, and the silt fences have been removed, so they're ready for action.
Alright,
They're ready.
You guys have anything
All
else?
set.
All good. Good.
No? Alright, any public comment on Queesit Commons? Seeing none, would you like to close?
yes, please.
Alright, motion, are we doing 3 years?
Yes.
Alright, motion to issue an extension for, I guess it's permit number E1055, and are we issuing it for the permit and the order of conditions?
No, because the orders is superseding,
Okay,
so he's making a separate request of them.
so it's just for the permit?
Yep.
Alright, motion to issue a 3-year extension for permit number E-1055 for Queesit Commons.
And so that'll be to June 1 of,
2022.
So amended.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Easiest one.
Get out of here, hurry up.
We're in the process of starting that path too.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
so you're gonna get
so
me a
there's-
detail.
That's awesome.
Yep, I'm working on that right now,
Okay.
so
Cool.
next time I come in front, we'll be walking that trail.
All
Nice,
right.
I like it.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
See ya.
80 Prospect.
Yay.
Yay!
Good thing you got here on time, Ken.
Yeah, I know.
Good
Yeah,
thing
front
we
row
told
seat
Chris
for all
not
the
to
excitement.
show.
Sorry, thanks.
Huh?
Good thing we told Chris not to shut
Well,
up.
you save,
Would've
cut
cost me a lot of
filing, and
money.
you save some payroll.
Yeah.
So, the good news, if you don't mind,
No.
is
Sign the sheet. Sorry.
sign-in sheet. This is Ken Williams. So the good news is, after the DEP Lakeville denied your approval, the DEP Boston, which is, instead of doing the technical review, the DEP Boston is the legal review, they approved the one bog that you guys did right from the very beginning, so nice job. So the purpose of tonight
Thank you.
is, to make the permit, to amend the permit so that it is, it's complementary to what the final order says, so that there's no confusion as to what we do. So rather than do a full staff report, I took the special conditions of the final decision, and then I took the permit issued and the decision and the comments that we had down below, and basically they simplified some of the comments we had, but it says the same thing. They have three new yeah, much simpler. They have three new conditions, and the only conditions that they didn't pick up on are your items number 7 and 8. I think those are directly, number 7 speaks to flood elevations, shouldn't be decreased, or shouldn't be increased on the downstream project sites, and renovating the bog must be directly related to cultivating and harvesting cranberries. I think both of those are not permit conditions. I think those are just as much the State Wetlands Protection Act. I don't think you can say that was specific to your permit. So I would say don't include them, and just use the same conditions that the final order did, so that they read the same way.
Okey-doke.
And then we should pick up the date of a new date for the amended order, which you normally don't do, but we should pick up the date of the final order was issued April 8th, 19, and I can make a statement that says, the final permitting was completed on this date, April 8th, 19, and therefore that's the start of your 3-year term.
Can we word it such that amend the order of conditions per Andrea's notes?
Yes, I'll figure that out.
We'll be here all night.
I can do that. I can do that. Do what Andrea says. I got that.
So this, cause the original, before all the
Hoorah.
hackers and whys and hoorah, so when does the clock, if you will, start? Remember, I think we gave Mr. Williams 3 years to produce vines.
So he doesn't have to deal with that anymore.
There you go.
So now he's renovating a bog,
Question answered.
and they make a specific statement. They say bogs 2 and 3 shall remain as bordering vegetated wetlands. So if you want to go into any future restoration of bogs 2 and 3, it'll be a whole new.
Yeah, shall remain strong.
Yeah, it'll be a whole new start.
So you
Start from
get to
scratch.
do this all again.
If you want to.
And your children, and your grandchildren.
But we know the outcome now.
Yep.
Okay,
Alright,
thank you.
question,
Yes,
fixing the big dam,
yeah, it's part of this.
okay,
It's part of this.
thank you.
And I've been watching it. You haven't been calling me, and I've been going down myself, and boards are holding. God bless them.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I've been checking, cause I go home that way, so I check 33.
And the water's coming down a
and
bit
then-
too.
Yeah,
I saw you
I have video
on
for you
the
if you want.
upgrade of the dam, I saw you in the water there, and you had a bar of soap, and I said,
Yeah.
what the heck's he?
No, he was on the downside, so he could get a shower.
yeah.
No,
Bill's got a frisky today.
kudos
Thank
to
you,
the
thank you.
persistence of both Mr. Williams and Andrea as well.
Yeah, good job, guys.
I thanks for working with us on this one. It was a long slog.
Hey,
Any public comment on AD Prospect? Seeing none? Would you like to comment?
close? Thank you all very much.
Thanks, Ken.
Alright,
Good job, man.
Motion to amend the permit to work, to conform to DEP final order of conditions per Andrea's notes.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You know what Andrea's notes are, you know, I'm just gonna
Everyone
take
seconded
those.
it. Everyone seconded it.
It is-
Keith, everyone seconded that, Keith.
I'm doing a talk on, next Monday about,
I need to get
project,
some
how to write good conditions. Is it okay if I use your project as an
Yeah.
example?
Yeah.
It's a very simple plan and it has everything we need on it. And obviously, we wrote good conditions the first time.
One question, stipulation about the trees?
Yeah, so I was a little cranky about the fact that he gets to clear 100 feet of trees, a full, 360 degrees around the perimeter of the bog, which includes half of the bog, too. So what I had asked for in the final order, which isn't written here, but it's been articulated, is that if the trees on bog 2 are small enough that they're not creating any shadow on one, can you leave them?
Yeah, I
That
like
was-
trees.
Nice.
Yeah. I mean, because we're not trying to make bog 2 a bog.
Oh, right.
So leaving the trees so they don't shadow 1 will help bog 2 stay.
Isolated me over here.
Thank you.
And stabilization, all the other good stuff.
So thank you very
Put
much.
yourself out on an island.
Can I add that condition to, you've agreed to it. Let's just leave it at that.
Yeah.
Gentlemen agreeing to it.
Yep.
Well, considering the past, should we just make it official and just say,
We
hey,
could.
we're gonna, we're clarifying that we're gonna limit the clearing of the trees to anything that's gonna cast a shadow on the bog.
Right.
And pruning those trees on an annual basis so they don't cause shadows, or
They would have to be because they're all mostly maples, right?
Yeah, but they're little babies.
Yeah, but you got those big pines.
You can do what you have to
With the
Right.
with the outside of the bog.
Nobody likes
Do
mine.
do what you have to outside the bog.
God took one down and blocked the road,
so
so,
I'll amend that motion
people couldn't get to the
that
houses.
Mr. Williams received clarification that we're allowing cutting down of trees that are gonna cast a shadow on bog 1 when the trees are located inside of bog 2, inside of that 100-foot radius that DEP allowed. And we're gonna leave trees that would not cast a shadow in the bog alone and allow for pruning those to keep shadows out of the bog.
Mm-hmm.
Second.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Cool.
Okay.
You got your
Might as
machine
well
running
get it
right now?
documented considering
Ready
what
to
we've
start tonight?
ran into.
No. No.
Alright, thank you.
Congratulations,
much.
Ken.
Thanks for your
Appreciate
patience.
Okay.
Especially tonight, long
I
one.
don't want to bring up a bad thing, but this, it was has the landowner changed?
I mean-
Has the landowner changed since we issued the,
House is my name.
I'm gonna change
It's,
the landowner to be Ken Williams.
Yes, it's,
Okay.
in the, what do they call it?
Probate.
No.
Will.
My
You
house-
got it.
My house is,
Yeah.
An LLC or something, or?
it's in my name at the,
Oh, the registry of deeds.
Registry of Deeds.
Perfect.
Must've been
Okay.
So,
Okay.
Congratulations.
Congrats.
Good luck
Thank
with
you.
your solar farm.
so it's fun.
Enjoy your 40B.
I don't think you get that much
40p.
electricity.
303 Peterson Road.
40p. Yeah, 150 units.
53 Peterson Road.
He's such a nice guy.
This started last week, so if anybody, so we're only gonna go with the 3 signatures we had last week. Frank, hi.
Hi, how are you?
Even?
Should we wait until he comes back, or?
Well, we got a revised plan. They pretty much,
Did you?
Frank, I'm just.
you guys actually voted to,
We did. So Bill, you're not allowed to look at anything. We voted last week.
is this the one we voted?
I can't look.
You gave us some homes on.
Yeah, I did. Yeah,
You did?
yeah.
He's been,
So watch it. Thank you. Thank you, Keith.
What are you gonna break ahead?
I don't know, whatever he has.
Oh, my.
I want some of that. That's good stuff.
yeah, yeah. Didn't you have a revised plan for this one? Am I confusing things?
I did bring in a revised
I
plan.
thought so. I just don't see it posted.
Okay, I put it on the website.
You did. Yeah. What's it called? Oh, here it is.
Works for me.
Yeah. Oh, you know, this is the one where you put the permanent markers in the lawn.
Yeah,
I did.
Frank, they can't get that stinks, they gotta do it like this, they can't get the plumbing out of there for them to help them
no,
out?
no,
That stinks.
and, yeah, they,
So this is the revised plan, if anybody needs to see it.
so, yeah, we,
Alright, well, yeah, we're pretty good to the revised
Yeah.
plan.
well, it's pretty much what we saw the last time. We didn't have a DEP number
Yep,
when we
I
last
have
met.
that now.
I got it the next morning.
Natural.
And so the only thing I've changed is I put in 3 locations for permanent markers.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, they're pretty much where the top of the slope kind of starts and, you know, they're still really in cleared areas that I think have been cleared previously some time ago, but I don't think that anyone's gonna really make much of the yard that's beyond that point, so,
Okay, so let's have it naturalized.
yeah.
Yeah, I've done some work right up here, this is all sand.
Yeah,
Where you
it
should
was
wash
all,
sand,
yeah,
yeah.
it was all, you know, less than 2 minutes
Yeah,
per
it's
inch
good stuff.
on the perk rates.
Do you know if they go down to the water then for anything, checking it out, looking at it? Cause I know in the past we've also allowed like a.
I don't think they do.
What was that again, Stefan?
Well, no, about letting them, do
Not
they
letting
go down to
them-
the water?
They go down to the water at all, cause I know in the past when we've reestablished buffer. the
Right,
waterfront,
right.
We've allowed for a
I
path.
think
Oh,
the,
yeah.
the buffer's already there, right now.
Yeah, okay.
So, yeah, I mean, that's
Done.
the only change that I've made.
Okay, alright. Alright, and we're gonna remove that PVC pipe.
Yes. Yeah, I've talked to the owner about that.
Okay. Guys, anything? Nope.
No, sir.
Alright, any public comment on 53 Peterson Road? Seeing none, would you like to close? Alright, motion to, no waiver, right, motion to issue an order of permits work and road conditions for 53 Peterson Road. Knowing that we are, defining the location of the permanent markers as shown on the plan, prohibiting dumping in the wetlands, and, at the previous, meeting, April 16th, applicant agreed to remove the PVC pipe located along the back slope, and will allow the, slope beyond the markers to naturalize.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, thanks for your patience tonight.
Don't need to sign, you've already done it.
Nice. Have a good night. 348 Foundry?
So I gotta recuse myself and I have to go to the bathroom.
Oh.
Convenient.
Yes. I waited.
Timed it that way.
Good evening, good
On your
evening.
schedule.
Been holding on.
That's good to have him back, isn't it?
It is nice to have Frank back.
Frank following Frank.
So, do you teach all those guys that out there how these things work in here? Frank?
348. Alright.
Nice and quiet this time. Yeah, he didn't have to shut the door or admonish anybody.
There's a new sign out there.
Oh, you did? I didn't notice.
You
Nice.
walked right by it, yeah.
Yeah. Awesome.
Seems to work.
Okay.
Yeah, so you're right, I did not see this new drawing, but it is, just what you said it was.
Okay, so
Is
you
this the
did-
right one, April?
That's the latest
April
revised
6th.
revision.
Okay. There we go. Yep, as an alternative too.
Yep. Okay, we did prepare as requested, an alternative plan, that showed the house pulled up, closer to the front property line with the septic system in the back. And there was no appreciable difference in the, disturbed area. In fact, it was a touch greater disturbance, and one of the reasons that it's greater is because the back behind the house is lower elevation. When you put the septic back there, it requires additional filling. So leaving the system in the front the way we had it actually is slightly smaller impact, but not much. There's really not much difference in the two.
What's the difference, Frank, in square footage?
You know, I couldn't tell you off the top of my head, I would have to check, but it was very, very little difference.
Yeah.
in
I know
the
you
square
wrote it in
footage.
some document somewhere.
Yeah. In accordance, I know that the agent
his
had
house.
questioned the zoning viability of the lot, remaining lot. Easton zoning bylaw stipulates that an estate lot must have a minimum of 40 feet of frontage, which this lot does. In fact, the change we're proposing to cut off that parcel for the town does not affect the frontage one bit in the world. We have the 40 feet of frontage over on Foundry Street, and it requires that for an estate lot you have twice the buildable area. This lot has a little over 81,000 square feet of contiguous upland. 80,000 would be the requirement for an estate lot, so it does meet all the zoning requirements outlined in the bylaw for an estate lot. So it should be no issue getting the modification. We do have an existing permit for an estate lot right now that was signed by the planning board. It'll simply be a modification of that permit so that we can transfer the 3.71 acres on the left over to the town, leaving the right parcel for buildability. The agent had asked that we show on the plan the dimension between the proposed building and the wetland line. We have added that to the plan, and at the closest, we are 82 feet from, and that's on this side right here, the westerly side, we're 82 feet to the wetlands. On the opposite side, it's 89 feet to the wetlands. We have also shown, as requested, every 50 feet, permanent wetland markers to be installed along the 50-foot buffer zone. That had not been previously on. In fact, this is the latest revision. I just wrapped it up today and sent it in. And we also added to the plan the maintenance procedure for the pervious pavement. We had previously proposed pervious pavement for the driveway. We have now added in the maintenance process and schedule for that.
I believe that pretty well takes care of the revisions to the plans. If you've got any questions, be certainly more than happy to respond to them.
If anybody has it, go ahead. I'm just reading through something.
So I think the one other point that we made at the last meeting was restricting development on that upland portion of the back part of it behind the house.
That was discussed and quite a bit at the last meeting. We would really be in opposition to that. We feel that what we're doing right now is granting almost 4 acres, 3.71 acres we're giving to the town in fee. I think to further restrict this parcel by restricting what someone can do on that very small bit of uplands behind the house is excessive. There's not much uplands back there. There's not an awful lot that they can do, but there is a little strip of uplands there. Obviously, anything within the buffer zones that they would attempt to do, they're going to have to be right back here in front of this commission asking permission for it.
So from it's being requested, at least from my perspective, to accommodate the, working inside the buffer zone of the vernal pool on this. I mean, I know there's some considerations in the 3.7 acres, and I'm just, one of our concerns with the vernal pools was the migratory patterns of these habitat.
Right.
With the wildlife. So, I mean, that was our concern there. We spoke at length last meeting about,
Yes, we did.
Even just the potential of them coming through the front lawn and everything else. And I think we're just trying to preserve that migratory, because they're gonna go that way. 'Cause
Right.
They're not going the other way. They're gonna go that way because that's where everything goes. I mean, there's conservation land over there, everything. So that's the reason for the request. It's to mitigate the loss of wildlife habitat overall here from those two vernal pools, potential vernal pools, as well as loss of wildlife habitat in this area in general. So I mean, it's that's
we are looking at an element of cumulative effects, considering it's kind of the last. It's been developed all around. Sorry.
yeah, no, and I just wanted to get. So I wanted you to understand where it was coming from. Yes.
We did hear discussion at the last meeting from Mark Manganello, who was testifying about the migration of the species from the vernal pool. And as I recall, he was testifying that there was really no issue with them crossing the lawn area, that in the evenings, whatever, you would quite frequently find those salamanders and other amphibians right across the front lawn. That the development as a lawn or use like that really would not interfere with their migration.
I know, and I guess that my concern is that they put something else besides, because it's outside of jurisdiction up there. They put something that is pervious, a tennis court, a pool, something that's really outside of our jurisdiction, and now that is something that's going to impact the migratory access of the wildlife.
Yes, I hear what you're saying with that, but if we'll look at the total area, right in here, you're looking at a strip of land that's less than 30 feet wide. From buffer zone to buffer zone across there. They're really not gonna put a tennis court or swimming pool in that area.
You don't know that. Come on. You can't tell me nobody's ever gonna potentially think about that down the line.
Everybody wants a swimming pool in Easton.
Yeah.
But the beauty of, as what Mr. Radwin said, is we have this board if they wanna.
Right.
Something.
I suspect
It's
that
out
they.
of jurisdiction.
I actually heard Mark say something different. He did say that the animals would be able to walk across the lawn pretty easily, or hop,
I think
or
we're talking
poop, or whatever they're doing.
about the driveway
But
and
right,
Right.
and so at the time the conversation was around the amount of proposed work here, and so he was saying this is de minimis. This won't affect their habitat. But I thought he was pretty clear that the two vernal pools on the east and the much larger vernal pool on the west did have a strong migratory pattern back and forth. So I don't know that you pressed him on what about outside the limit of work. I heard him say that the disturbance inside the limit of work was not going to be an issue. I don't think that he opined on what would happen if the limit of work expanded.
I think we're talking as much ado about 30 feet. And we are getting 41.
30 feet by 120. Well, right, but it's you know, kind of, there's not a lot of upland here to deal with, and we're talking about an area of upland between a couple potential vernal pools.
I tend to doubt, and again, I can't sit here and guarantee it, but I tend to doubt that any homeowner could do much at all in that area without encroaching in the buffer zone and having to come back before this commission. I think the real reluctance, though, is to have the conservation restriction in the deed that really would, it's more of a psychological impact on the homeowner as far as purchasing the land, having the restrictions on it, devaluing the sale from that aspect.
To me, it devalues, but
Yeah.
some
I mean,
people
it-
may find that as a, might find that appealing, but.
How much area are we talking about on top of, so there's 3.39 already coming?
Now, 3.39 is this site.
371 is what we're giving to the town, 3.71
That's
acre.
what we're giving, and this area is how much?
120 by 30.
So it's about an acre.
No,
No, you
quarter acre.
Yeah.
The upland is
Yeah, the
about
up-
120 by 30.
Yeah.
Right, talking 360
Not
square
much
feet.
more than a tenth of an acre.
Right.
Yeah,
3,600 square feet.
Yeah,
yeah, so an eighth of an acre.
yeah.
What if we condition it such that the upland area, so we extend the permanent markers to go along that perimeter, so that they know for sure what they can, where they cannot go into, and that any structures or pervious construction would need to be approved by the commission. Can we work
Oh, yeah,
something
you
like
can do
that?
you actually can do cumulative impacts in an
Yeah,
ACEC.
Yeah.
I don't know if I completely understood what you were referring to with the marker locations.
So, extending the markers, so we have the limit of work, markers along the boundary there. And then any pervious or structures that would be constructed inside there would need to come in front of the board.
Oh, I
Review
thought you were
cumulative
saying
effects.
bring the markers up to the limit of your jurisdiction, up to the 100-foot line. Move it off the 50 to the 100. You didn't, that's not what you were saying? After the limit of work?
Like
After the silt fences?
Right now, we're showing the markers at the 50-foot buffer.
So then go up to where the,
Those are
and bring
markers.
those up to the 100. That's what I thought you were saying. That's not what you
Yeah,
were
no,
saying.
'cause I thought we had talked about, limiting the yard to the limit of work. We had absolutely talked about that at the last meeting.
Mhm.
That was a
Okay,
absolute definite. We talked about that.
okay, because the report that I received back from just this afternoon said they wanted the markers on the 50-foot buffer. That's why I put them there.
Yeah, I pulled that from your note.
Okay.
It was the note on the second page.
Well, because I know we had a healthy discussion around the
Yeah.
lawn and then
Yeah.
how is it going to be defined beyond the limit of work.
Sure.
And I know we talked about having the RV limited.
So, well, I'm certainly not gonna have a major stumbling point as far as putting the markers at the 50-foot point or the hay bale line. That's really,
No, I think,
that's not a big deal.
I think though, so you're saying someone wants to put a shed in, they're gonna need to come back.
It's that kind of site. It's that kind of site.
Or
I have a-
ACEC.
I have a real problem with a shed in the backyard and a 30 by 120, so.
Well, look, if
That's insane. You just,
I've just conditioned that like cut that off and back here. If they wanna put a shed right here, I don't care, that's fine.
I think I might have heard you say something like that, cause that's my third bullet, that if the conservation restriction was an option, then the third bullet is if no CR, identify the area as permanently undisturbed in its natural state.
Yeah.
So when I read that earlier today, you know, my one concern is that conditions get lost over time, and that from owner to owner, the first owner is gonna understand that.
Sure.
The second owner's not gonna even know that condition exists anymore.
Really
It-
delayed telephone meeting?
Yeah, well, that's what happens, right? And so, I mean, that's my concern about if we believe we want to leave that areas undisturbed without a CR on it. I believe for the next probably 10 years, it's probably, we'll get what we want. Beyond that, I have no idea what's gonna happen. And if we really are worried about the cumulative effect of impacting this wildlife habitat, in this 7 acres of property, which I understand, it's, 7 acres of property here, but we're tucked into the one spot on this property where you could possibly put a home, and we're still impacting, potentially impacting the habitat. And so while the 3.7 acres is something that is good to retain, it's not a buildable lot. There's nothing you can do with that particular lot. I don't think it diminishes the value of this home to put the 3.7 acres to the town. And to be honest, I'm hard pressed to believe that, putting restriction on this 3,000 square feet is diminishing the value of this home too.
But I guess you could come back the same way and say, again, it's 360 feet, what can they do? If they do anything, any project of any substantiability, they would be in a buffer zone and they would be back before this board. Whatever, whomever might.
Well, I'm saying my preference is to restrict the use of that property, not to come, well, maybe to come before us, but I'm not even sure, I'm not even sure that that's really what I'm saying, because I really think we need to take care of the habitat and the wildlife that's in this property, that we know is in this property.
Guess I'd take the opposite view, that the amount of, the rest of the land certainly goes a long way towards that consideration. And again, that they have to come back if they wanna do anything
Well, they may not have to. That's my whole point, they may not have to.
Can I just ask Dan if you reviewed this site?
Yeah.
Do you need, can you sign a statement that you've?
Yeah.
It's a Mullins rule, right?
Yeah. It's just, I don't know, maybe I'm colored towards the idea that it is an estate lot, and there's also so much land coming back. I don't know where the fair line of consideration becomes.
It was compelling what Mark was saying, and you actually, the applicant actually, got a very good evaluation of his land. A very thorough evaluation of his land.
I guess I would be open to considering kind of like splitting the difference, so that way, let's say we stop the yard here, right? Leave this totally natural back here, that way we've got some nice upland for the homeowners to enjoy, and we've got half the nice upland for the critters to use unimpeded in their natural state. I would at least consider something like that.
I'm just wondering how that could actually be structured so that the future owner and owners down the road would understand their limitations.
So if we put a perpetual condition on it, yeah, you get a certificate of compliance,
Put a fence
it'll
in.
it'll still be on the certificate of compliance that you have to do this, but, to Rory's point, it's, when they just see that there is a certificate of compliance, they don't read what it says.
I mean, the only thing you could do is if you put a post and rail fence up there with wetland markers on it.
Yeah.
And maintain it in good repair.
I mean, I think, once again, you're maybe stretching it out more than 10 years, out to maybe 30. But I understand, believe me, remember, my proposal is a CR on this.
Sure, no,
So I understand that, what I'm putting out there is somewhat,
I mean, one of the big takeaways I got from Mark is that, pretty high value upland area there.
Yeah, so basically, as I understand it, what you're talking about would be cutting it off roughly, this is 100 feet from the house, cutting it off basically at 100 foot.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable.
That's 100 feet from the house,
Yes, yeah, 100 feet would be coming right across,
to the T? Okay.
right across the
And
line.
how much is that losing of the 360 square feet?
It's not much.
Well,
It's
I mean,
it's
what
three-
they ha- what they have right here is way more than we talked about at the last meeting. Yes, it is.
You're looking at about 65 feet of additional depth beyond that, then.
Oh, that's the limit of something that is acceptable to everybody, then.
I think it leaves a fair amount of it in natural state. I think a 100-foot deep backyard, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
Yep. I think that's, I believe my client would consider that a reasonable compromise.
Make it 99.
101.
I like odd numbers. Or something.
And you wanted a more substantial permanent marker.
Yeah, I would propose that we do put either
Visible.
post and rail fence
I agree.
with
There's gotta be something
with-
in lieu of.
Electric?
Is that acceptable?
I'd be afraid to be
3
on
feet
the right.
3 feet behind the post and rail fence. You can put up an electric fence. Okay, let's keep this.
Invisible electric fence.
But that'd be. I mean, I'd want, if we're gonna do this,
Mhm.
I'd want to put up some physical barrier.
I agree.
At least it's a delineation of where it is. That
Post
at
and
least
rail
will be
fence
up.
to be erected 100 feet beyond the house.
Is that,
With permanent marker.
what do you think of that, Frank?
With permanent markers.
I think that would be acceptable.
Miguel?
What are you asking me now?
But you just,
Well, any
I mean,
other any other thoughts? I mean, this is
I-
deliberation.
Exactly, no, we're trying to compromise, I just didn't follow the size of it, it doesn't.
Well, one of the ways I see it too is what we had talked about for yard size and what was brought here looks to be 2 to 2.5 times the size of what we discussed as it is, and our compromise is more lawn than what we had talked about at the last meeting. But I still think it's a pretty good compromise, and I think it matches up with what we do normally as far as where we got the permanent markers and the lines.
Yeah, I just, well, again, you gotta, never mind leave the donations backed out of it, you've got, 5 acres this way and this way, plus 120 by 30.
if you do the math, it'll never work in the to the environment's favor, because you've got 3 vernal pools that the boundary goes into the upland area, so a significant amount of it is already jurisdictional, not even buffer zone. So the math is never gonna work.
So this is what we had talked about before, and about vernal pools and stuff, and about some of the.
This is without the buffer
All right,
zone.
Aside from that, do you have anything to add? Or
No.
anything else you want to address?
No, I'm opposed and I don't wanna compromise.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you have anything else you want to add, Dan?
But Dan's gotta sign his Mullins before we,
Okay.
before we
Oh,
vote.
well, we should probably see a updated plan anyways.
Okay.
Okay.
I mean, what do you want?
Do we need,
I mean, well,
you want, I'm just saying,
Yeah, you can put it conditional, but
Yeah.
updated plan.
I'm just,
Accept a condition, we would accept a condition that would state that a fence be erected
Yeah,
100
yeah,
feet
that's
beyond the
fine.
house.
Yeah.
pretty minor detail.
I don't think we have.
Okay, alright, very good. So let's just go through the next ones. Like sustainable lawn practices, you got that. Erosion controls, we got that.
The gift of land at the top.
Oh, yeah, here it was. We
Didn't have a timing on it.
what we had talked about, add plastic fencing along the northern line of erosion
Right.
controls to complete the limit of work.
Right.
That is exactly what we discussed previously. Okay. Submit requisite documentation to certify vernal pools by specific time before certificate of occupancy. Any movement on that, considering we just got through the kind of peak vernal pool season? Or?
I can't speak to that. That would be something we'd have to get from Mark Manganello. We could certainly accept that as a condition, providing you gave us sufficient time to get that taken care of. I mean, it could simply
Yeah, I think
be,
we said,
it could simply must be taken care of before issuance of a certificate of compliance.
Or a certificate of occupancy?
Hmm?
Certificate of occupancy?
That gives you plenty of time.
That should be
Well,
fine.
certificate of occupancy, that
You gotta build the house.
exactly, but what I'm thinking about, if they need the breeding season,
Right.
we're too late for that, and they would probably be wanting a certificate of occupancy before the next breeding season takes.
Well, does Mark have
Takes
enough
effect.
evidence as it is to certify them now?
I can't speak for him on that.
Yeah, no, yeah.
Well, we
I
had
guess I'm just
previously-
rhetorical question.
We had previously, who did we approve saying,
the
as
courts,
long as they started the filing process?
the courts, that sport
Right, the
court.
folks with the, right,
Oh,
as long
right.
as they started the process.
Court board?
Was,
Yeah.
Okay,
that would be.
that would be acceptable.
Alright, that sounds, yeah, that's fine. But, might wanna get in touch with Mark and ask
Sure.
if he thinks he has enough to.
He may have it, I just
Yeah.
can't speak for him.
Yeah, no, cause he has a couple different points in time looking at it too, cause when we all went out for the first time, he was basically, this is a textbook
That's right,
definition.
he did the initial flagging.
Yeah, and then, yeah, so he, I don't know, we'll ask him if he has.
You know, I mean, he's got photos of the site and everything already, I mean, it's.
The permanent markers.
Which you're moving, right? No, you're not moving?
Well, I think
You're
we'll
leaving
leave
as
them
is.
as is, we're just
Okay.
cutting off the back.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
You took care of the state lot special permit? The ANR permit?
Yeah,
shall be
yeah.
endorsed?
Yeah.
Obviously, if that doesn't take place, we don't get the building permit, so this whole thing is.
Okay, I think I'm okay on this one. Alright. Any public comment on 348 Foundry Street? Seeing much, or lack thereof. Alright, so we have permit to work, order conditions, and waiver, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Alright, so, motion to issue a permit to work, order of conditions, and waiver for 348 Foundry Street, with the, conditions noted on the staff report, revised May 4th, 2019. Conditional upon receiving an updated plan showing the post and rail fence with permanent markers being established, 100 feet off the back of the 100 feet off the back of the house. Can we just, can I see your board, just so I can, just wanna put my eyes on the scale and everything too, just to, I'm sure you're right, I just want
30 scale, there's 100 feet cut right across there.
Okay, perfect. Alright, we'll just, I guess we'll just follow the house line, or?
Yeah, follow the line of the house would be the simplest.
Certainly the easiest for your drafters. Yeah, so, the post rail fence with permanent markers to be established 100 feet off the back of the house, and throwing out that, it can use the line of the house and go parallel to that.
Post rail with markers on it.
So the timing of the gift of the parcel,
What do we need to add on that one?
I think we just have two different options here, so we're gonna use the gift of parcel A by certificate of occupancy?
Is that good?
Sure,
It's easy
yeah,
enough to
yeah,
do.
because I can't see any hold up on that. With the vernal pool certification, I could see that may possibly take time, but the land swap, I don't see, or not
So,
swap, but
if
gift.
the parcel A, before certificate of occupancy
Yeah.
is issued.
Go ahead.
Is there anything else?
Just the timing on submitting documentation.
Oh, yes, and timing for submitting documentation to certify the vernal pools, must be filed before the certificate of occupancy. And
No.
I do wanna note that.
Were we gonna make it a condition that they had to do it? Because if they wanna do a certificate of occupancy before,
Come in
Just
and
before
want the
next spring?
process started.
they can come
Process
in,
start.
come in and ask for an extension, and you can just ask if it's been diligently pursued.
Control.
Right.
Right, yeah, if they have.
No,
enough
I just wanna make sure I'm not
evidence.
holding up the landowner here unnecessarily if he can
Yeah.
get the project
I
done
see where you're
before
No, yeah, yeah,
April
yeah.
1st.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm just trying not to hold up the landowner, that's
Yeah.
all.
Right. Allow Andrea to do an administrative.
It's fine with me,
Discretion, yeah.
whatever's gonna work here, I just don't want the landowner to be, maybe make it, he has to do it.
It has to be filed or diligently pursued.
But you really can't diligently pursue it until big night, so.
Yeah. To me, it would be
You
just
can
very
have it
simple,
planned.
must
You
be
can have it
concluded
committed.
prior to issuance of the certificate of compliance.
Yeah, but people don't get the certificates of compliance.
But can you get a certification?
That's like, okay, so
of
therefore I
vernal
will
pool
never
without-
do it.
Yeah.
So no-
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
I think you actually have
You
to
could-
show,
You could say, or within 1 year of, or within 1
1 year
year
of this
of
order.
certificate of, if the applicant shows.
If the, alright, so,
you know what I mean?
yeah, no, I know what you mean. Yeah, so, they must submit the documentation for certifying the vernal pool, before a certificate of occupancy, or show evidence that they have to wait for the next breeding season, in which case they'll have,
It will become effective.
I guess, a year from this order,
I would say that, yes.
a year from this order to file.
I think that's reasonable.
Okay,
Good solution.
alright, anything else?
That's it.
I think that's it.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Opposed?
Somebody else second, Dan. You
Oh,
got, we don't have your Mullins
second.
rule.
Oh, yeah.
Alright, Rory second, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
You not opposed?
No, I am opposed.
Sorry. Alright,
Okay, thank you.
No one said,
thanks.
no one said no more.
Have a good night. Alright, 60 Eastman?
Yes. What?
I still sign, right?
Huh, Mike?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I'm just affirming.
2 to 1.
Came to the dark
2 to 1 is a quorum.
Like-
Right?
You left
2
me
to
out on
1
my
is a
own.
quorum.
Yes, because we had that.
What? Yeah, so
Yeah,
that's
I
for
believe you do sign, even though
Yeah,
you said,
I'm affirming the vote.
right, right.
Oh,
Evening?
did anybody,
You've been
just,
out working.
Dave, Danny, thank you for coming. Just a
Procedural.
Keith is asking a procedural question.
Oh, yeah.
Only 3 of you are available to vote tonight. It's a 2 to 1 vote. Is that quorum?
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
Absolutely.
Okay, good, we're done. Come on in.
Did Dan Mullen?
No, Dan didn't sign.
Oh, okay.
Thank you for
Yeah,
coming.
'cause we
I
had
missed
last week, it was 2 to 1,
Sorry I had to wait so long.
3 of us.
This is indeed who you think it is. Introduce
Okay.
yourself.
We was here last time.
Alright, so Andrew, I know we talked before, and you've been out to the site, and I know we've had some challenging conditions to work in. So,
So the last time you were, you sent a letter to Mr. Alvarez. We had the town council involved, and since then I was out there just last week, the 22nd, I think it was, April.
Yeah, twice I guess.
Right after during the school vacation week, and he had gotten about half of the material removed from the driveway that extends the new drive that was created. And it couldn't go any further because the water was overtopping everything.
Yeah, more of a mess, basically.
It was,
right?
yeah, I mean, he did what he could before the rains came.
Yeah.
It's less wide, and I don't know if you were able to do anything after that. But I said basically you can't bring any more trucks in here to do, to pull out that road. So he made an effort, and that was noticeable. And then after that, he can speak for himself.
I think you nailed it. That was it.
So what's the plan for continuing once, I mean, I assume that at some point you guys will agree when he can get back out there, or?
It's the kind of what we wanted to discuss tonight, is like how long is it gonna take?
For this to dry out, the weather?
Dry out. It's been a really wet April.
Didn't they say this is one of the wettest springs on record?
It was the wettest April in recorded meteorological history in New England.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I think it squeaked out the last couple
It
days.
did.
Yeah. It wasn't by a ton, no.
On top of a fall that was.
Yeah. Highly unusual.
So how much more work do you think you have?
I don't know. What would you think?
You got,
What would you guess?
you got, you were working from the back coming forward.
Correct.
And so he got pretty much to the cross road that goes back to the house. He got pretty much to there. It just needs to be cleaned up a little
Is
bit.
that halfway point?
More than halfway.
Really?
It's like
It seemed like
80%.
We saw where the MIDI came in originally.
Yeah.
It came up
Yeah.
almost, it was like a.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's good for him.
Okay. And so you guys will work together on when it's good to complete it?
I think you should put a date of when
Well, I know
you
we've
want it
got-
done
we
by.
definitely have some dry weather coming up.
You want it done by, do you want it done by July 4th? Do you want it done?
Well, the soils that you have over there, first of all, we got a high water table, and obviously we got some pretty organic soil. So that wants to, we got to think about, we don't want to create more damage here, guys.
Right.
That's the only thing we don't want. We don't want to get big trucks in there or whatever and just start slopping it up Eastman Street and everything else. So can we, I don't want to procrastinate this, but can we wait to the next meeting to see what we got for weather and then put it, I feel more comfortable seeing if we get some dry weather, so we can put, it's gonna take 2 weeks with no rain for this to dry out.
Right.
And I don't wanna stretch it out, but what if we put a timetable on and we get another month of rain?
Yeah.
So is there,
That's a fair point.
cause he's doing good faith in cleaning it up.
Yep.
Let's help him and get through with this, but the guy upstairs has gotta help us too. I just don't know how you could put a cap on that without knowing when he can go in there.
Yeah, I agree.
Go one more meeting.
I think that if we're gonna be waiting, stuff is gonna be vegging up, and if we're just gonna be disturbing more of it. Personally, because I'm seeing it kind of grow.
Why, what's it like out there for right now? Is it hard enough to drive on?
Well, I wasn't out there today, but last time I was out there it was still like I feel like I'm just gonna end up getting stuck.
Yeah, it was squishy.
Were you there recently?
Wait, what was it?
Squishy.
Squishy.
Squishy's better than, Squishy is better than, higher than
let's
your
put it
bean
this way, I didn't
boots.
want to put the boots back in my car after walking through it,
Well,
okay?
remember we had that about Crow, maybe we should go back out and look at it.
You wanna put an outside date and then say, absolutely by this date, and we'll
Yeah.
reconsider
Yeah.
at the next
Well,
meeting?
it's going to dry out in the summertime. That's a given.
Right.
That's a given. So, and how long, no, well, last year it did the same thing. We had a nice spring start and then we got rain.
Yep.
And everybody got red thread in their lawns, and then all of a sudden, we got hit with 90-degree weather.
Boom.
Boom, horrible. Dried everything out.
So do we want to say by July 15th?
Yeah, I think that's fine.
No later than?
No later than July 15th, and we will touch base along the way.
and say if we have to extend it a couple weeks, can we do that?
Well, yeah,
We
we'll
can
we'll
let-
reevaluate.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
I think so.
I mean,
Okay.
And
you
in
know,
the meantime, we can go out there and look at that road.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll be waiting to see if you guys want me to rip out more, or if we're comfortable just letting it grow from where it is.
but maybe we try to get out there before the next meeting and take a look at it.
Mm.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
It's a great idea.
Yeah, cause yeah, if
Is that
things are
time's
growing
up?
back like we thought they might be, then
Yeah.
maybe.
That's a
Well,
great, no, it's a
maybe
good
we
idea.
just
That was
cap it
what's-
off by blocking it off.
Yeah.
That's,
Yeah.
that's
So
what
let's-
started you and I
yeah,
talking about
yeah.
that way back, so.
Alright,
I'd like to go out there,
21st.
I'm gonna say something, you guys are gonna start laughing at me.
Yeah.
I know it's coming, I
Probably.
don't even wanna say
You
it.
have to go back to
Probably.
Florida, when can
I'm
you
going
again?
in Thursday,
The other shoulder?
other shoulder.
The other shoulder.
Oh my
There you
God.
go.
Wednesday night?
The
I have a
completion of
meeting.
the Bionic Man, or are we only like 70%?
I might I'll come back as RoboCop and
Hey,
I might
tomorrow's-
start
So
pounding
you,
him.
so you need to go Wednesday.
I can't Wednesday,
How
Oh,
about tomorrow night?
I can't tomorrow night. I have meetings, because of this coming up, I got everything scheduled out.
Yeah.
It's not like I'm gonna be out of communication, I could do it probably over the weekend.
oh, yeah.
I
This is,
could,
we're talking, the
Or
next
about-
meeting's the
about-
21st.
I can do, yeah, I'm gonna be fine, all I'm gonna be in is
Because
a
we're not near
cat.
your
Yeah.
house, so we're not.
It's not like I'm
Shove you right
dead.
in.
Yeah, that's, probably throw me in a hole and bury me.
What day of the week's good for you guys next week?
I don't know, that's what I was just saying to Mr. Albin, is that we're not going over near the home and, you know.
Yeah, just
kids, so
checking
we're
out
just
the.
gonna walk down the road and walk back and.
I'll just give her a heads up if she
Yeah.
sees people around.
Sure.
Yeah, she's got a young baby at home.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah.
that's,
Don't wanna freak
just
her out.
stick to that road and.
Alright, so Stefan, you wanna see about next week?
Yeah.
Alright, so, I have I'm open every day next week. Not, I can make,
Thursday?
I can
16th?
flip 16th, what time you thinking?
I'm pretty wide open at this point.
No, whatever works for you, I'm wide open, whatever
9?
works. 9?
Oh, excuse me.
Is anybody else going to,
I'd probably
if
make that
you wanna
okay,
change the
Lisa?
time for it so you can go, or?
No, I was out there last weekend.
Okay.
So
You wanna see if it's drier though?
What day are you talking
We're just
about?
looking at the vegetation,
Thursday
but
the 16th?
9 AM?
Or 4:30?
4:30? Why 4:30?
I didn't know which which end of the workday was worse for Dan.
We're all out of work by 2, us
Try to make
guys.
the 9 AM.
Okay,
Thursday the
16th.
that's the date.
Okay.
Okay. So meanwhile, just
Com-
hang tight until I hear.
Yeah, I
something
mean,
back.
if you are able to do anything between now and Thursday, it'll look that much better when they get out there.
Yep,
Yeah.
for sure.
Okay.
Otherwise we'll
Keep it going.
Don't get any no tire tracks though.
Mhm.
Okay.
Alright.
Thanks for coming in.
Thanks, man.
Apologize for the delay.
We'll be in touch.
Okay.
12 Forest Ed?
Oh, hi. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Um,
Oh yeah, if you could
Yep.
just sign in please, and then state your name for the record, please.
Tony Urita.
This was the gentleman who didn't realize he had a wetland in his backyard. Trees came down in the storm. Took it as an opportunity to, go farther and wider. And got an enforcement order from you guys issued on the 22nd of April and basically has been all over it since then.
Oh, great.
So you set standards of having enforcement, a silt fence by April 28th, to hire a wetland professional, to attend this meeting, and then to have a notice of intent submitted by June 17th. So, how's it going?
Good. Still waiting on the fence. Contacted landscaper to get him out there to handle it, but he's just been delayed due to rain to get it out there. So.
What do we have for fence going in there?
Just a regular silt fence because, frankly, with all this rain, he's got sandy, loamy soil, and it's really not migrating.
Mm.
So it was really just to it hasn't been migrating.
Do you
It's not a
wanna
big
do
issue.
the silt fence yourself, or no? You ever seen it done? Easy, real easy.
Okay, what do I do?
You can buy the silt fence,
Agway.
well,
I think
closest place is,
Agway-
Easton Wind Water, which
Yep.
is right on Manly? Is that Manly Street?
No, Turnpike,
Turnpike, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Turnpike Street, right up,
you know, by
Next-
White's Bakery and
Yeah.
System.
right across the street. You can buy it in there, it's very inexpensive.
Okay.
And you basically, stakes facing the wetland side, and you have a 6-inch lip, you take a shovel, you try to dig a trench about they make these spaded shovels that they're 4 inches wide for doing this, and you just dig a trench 6 inches down, stretch it, bang the stakes down, and then put that fill on the upland side over the tongue, so it will stop the water, any runoff from going underneath it.
Okay.
How long is the material, how long a distance?
So, this is what we were going back and forth with. The area that I disrupted, or disturbed, I don't know what the proper term is, like 25 feet.
Yeah.
But I was just gonna do it across the whole yard, just to
It's
do.
100-foot rolls they come in.
He said he could do 200-foot rolls and do the whole yard,
Yeah.
but I don't even know if I honestly need to do it all the way around, because we had it.
The pool side, the neighbor with the
It's-
pool
that's,
side,
That's where
And then-
that's where we went too far.
and then go, 75
What do you think,
the rest of the
100 footer,
way,
Andrea?
it'll be okay. Yeah, because the wetland is curving away
Yeah.
from the backyard at that point.
You
So-
could do this in a couple hours while having a coffee, it's really easy.
Yeah, I don't mind doing it. He just told me he would get it done, because I was away, and when I came back, he told me he would have it done by last Thursday.
Okay.
So,
Well, the
What
sooner
was
the
that, 4
better.
days and-
Yeah,
Yeah.
sooner the
he hasn't
better.
got out there, so I can follow up with him even if he drops it off, I'll do it myself, because he went to, I think somebody said Agway or Agway or something. I think that's where he picked up the material, or he was
It's
gonna pick
over
up
in,
the material.
Hanson.
So, but I don't mind doing it myself, I'll
Yeah.
get it out there, I know that's very important, so.
They'll volunteer sometimes.
I do.
Fence installs.
Yes,
But not Wednesdays,
Love
got
it.
surgery on Thursdays.
love it, yes, okay, yeah. Thursday
All the
morning.
volunteering, that's why you have to have the surgery.
You know where,
Uh,
Much ditch
you know where else a
Yeah.
local business place where you can buy it is, I didn't even think of this, Fernandes Lumber sells it too.
Okay.
Oh, they do?
Yeah.
I will make sure that that's done by this weekend, and or by Friday, and I'll get Andrea an email updating her on that.
Right.
Okay.
The other update is, I think her name is Brooke Monroe. I hired her to come out and flag the area, and then, so it's all flagged. Now I know how far we went and how far we have gone. So I measured out, take 2 ways with a roll tape, with a 50-foot measuring tape, and I went around sporadically. And on the side of the pool, that's where the area is. I want to say it's maybe 25 feet, and it varies in distance. Sometimes 4 feet over, sometimes 8 feet over. So what I would like to do is propose that I measure out like 55, 60 feet, whatever you guys feel comfortable with, and just kind of go around and just remove the fill that we brought in, because ultimately the plan was just to put grass and bushes. So just remove that fill, and then just plant whatever you all are comfortable with, and work with the environmentalist or the wetland specialist to come up with the plan to put there. But there was no plan for pools. I think somebody made the joke, everyone in Easton wants a pool. I can attest, I don't want a pool. I had one in my first house.
The truth is the
Yeah.
opposite.
Yeah, I had one in my first
You wanna
house.
know somebody with a pool.
Well, exactly. I just signed up for the Brown Beyond or whatever. It's $500, and I figured by the time my kids are old, I would have saved $50,000, $60,000. So I have no intent for a pool. It really was safety and peace of mind for my wife.
Stefan, how, also should we have permanent stakes put in so this doesn't happen again? Or?
That's a good idea.
Okay.
Yeah, the line you're establishing.
At the new line?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the markers, you can get them really cheap right up the street at $50.
Okay.
It's just a
Same-
practice we've been
same
doing.
as, Shoveltown Brewery, it's Jacob Driscoll Engineering.
Permit
And
stakes.
they're like
Yeah, conservation
$250 a
markers.
piece.
The-
Yeah,
the-
they're a medallion.
You get the medallions from him, you have to just put in 4x4 posts.
And how many of the, like, just follow like
Oh, like roughly
every 10 feet or
Yeah.
50 feet?
Yeah. I think that's what
Yeah,
we've been doing.
yeah, roughly, whatever the terrain, yours is fairly straight, so.
Yeah,
And
and
to
I don't
follow
mind
those.
going all the way around to keep the wetland. Yeah, if that's what you guys want.
Sort of like if you ever sold a place, it's just for
Future.
that's what it's for future, and when we walk, if we ever go by there, we could see.
Yeah, if you guys want to come once it's done and inspect it, I'm
Okay,
fine with that.
well, we will, yep, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming. You are a gentleman and a scholar.
Yeah, right
No
now it says,
problems.
They were winning when I walked in. I don't know if they still
you
are.
have to
Now
have
it's still
a
out there.
professional engineer. You can do it.
Oh,
Alright, and then, we'll, for filing the notice, I don't think we'll require you to have like a professional engineer drawing.
Okay.
I think if you probably work with a wetland scientist, I would imagine you guys can kind of sketch it out.
Okay.
You guys good
Yeah.
with that?
Thank you guys.
Okay.
Appreciate that.
Alright, thanks for jumping all over it.
Yeah, no problem. So next steps, just
Install the silt
The
fence,
fence,
send me
yeah.
photos that it was done. I'll swing by, next time I'm in the area, to make sure that it's still up. And then keep working with Brooke for, that
okay.
application submittal by the 17th.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you
Yeah,
guys.
you can let her know that we don't need a professional drawing.
Perfect.
Sketches
Yeah.
will suffice.
All right. Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you.
very much. Nice to meet
Yep,
you.
thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Alright, 523 Turnpike?
Oh, you stayed. Thank you.
I get the back row. Sign in and state your name for the record, please.
Brian Donovan.
This was the long thin property that everyone around him is in the priority habitat area, and he's not.
That's right.
But he does have a wetland, like 12 feet off his back property. When I first sent the letter of noncompliance, he didn't notice it. But when you sent your enforcement order on the 22nd, definitely noticed it. And I was out you were here in the office the next day. I was out with him on the site on the 20th, and he got the silt fence installed. We found the wetland. We pointed out where the vegetation was different, and then we staked out roughly 50 feet from that and 100 feet from that. He's put in an erosion control line at on May 1st. And moved. I didn't pick up any pictures here. And he moved that's the guy's putting it in correctly, because he is a landscaper. So not only does he have,
I honestly wasn't trying to do anything wrong. I swear to God, I was just.
he knows how to do it. He's
You
got
should've
really
used your-
nice
Why did
soil.
you use your company to do it? Why did you use,
Because I am exhausted. I'm not taking on any more work. I don't know when I'm gonna get to these jobs I already have.
So these are the
If you
two
can find some
flags I
employees
have.
out there, you cannot find those these days. Trying to replace them with equipment.
So the area to the flag is on the upland side of the silt fence.
Okay.
And so he's moved the piles off of that 50-foot area. And that's nothing. Okay. So he's on the way. The enforcement order said, install the silt fence by the 28th. He had it in by the 1st, same difference. Attend the meeting tonight to discuss restoration efforts. Wanted to know what we say, hire an engineer and wetland professional to develop a restoration plan. I'm sure he wants to speak to you about that. And then complete the notice by the same June 17th date. And identify and restore the 50-foot. The enforcement order said restore the 50-foot to pre-existing naturalized woodlands. So he's on his way. This was beautiful soil because it used to be How, before you
Yeah, there was
lived
a
there,
horse
there was
farm
a
there
horse
before I bought it in
farm there.
2010.
Where was this? I'm trying to think where 523 is. Where's
It's right next to Chase Landing, across from the batting cages and the putt-putt, 138.
Oh,
Narrow
yes,
frontage.
Yes, I know, yeah.
Chase Landing on one side and condominiums on the other.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, that,
Beautiful long lot.
yeah, and
Beautiful
that's that
long lot
sand
for
that ties into the pond we talked about earlier. That's all that glacial washout, yeah.
Yes, it does. It does go into Maplewood, with a horse farm between him and Maplewood. So the 50-foot line is established. I wanted to get that up because the turtles don't know that it's not prime habitat here.
That's a horse farm in there, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, is this a raised ranch in the front yard? It's a
No,
very deep lot, like a 3-acre lot?
It's an acre and a half. There's a white colonial in the front with a big barn right behind it. It's literally right next to Chase Landing. There's like a 500-foot stockade fence going down.
Oh, yeah, I know it.
Yeah,
I know
so
it.
that's
yeah.
my property
I
right
know
there.
it. So you just said the fence,
Yeah.
I know the lot.
Yeah, honestly, I wasn't even cutting trees down there. I was expanding the parking lot a little bit, and I was trying to stay 200 feet away from what I thought was the wetlands out back. And I was actually moving my compost and loom piles temporarily back there so I could clear that stuff out and then get it back. And I didn't realize that was a problem.
As close as you were.
Yeah, and then I'm sure having the bobcat and the trackhoe going through there, I've taken down like vegetation, but I wasn't really taking trees down inside that 200-foot mark. I mean, the second got called out on it, I got right in the machine and just.
Yep.
I mean, you can't even get a bobcat back there right now because of all the rain, so I could only do it with the excavator. So I'm sitting like right here, grabbing 15 feet that way, throwing 15 feet that way. Just one thing at a time. Like I can't get the bobcat in there.
Yeah,
So I
that
wanted to
looks
at least
pretty, where you've got it, looks like you sealed it pretty good with a bucket.
Yep, no, I took it, I went 6 inches down along the whole thing. I took pictures to show everything was down there, packed it all in, I graded it all perfectly so any water runoff just was going the same natural way it used to go before the piles were there. I mean, I'm just trying to avoid, like, I didn't realize I was doing something wrong. I'm trying not to, like, spend thousands of dollars on an engineer and all that stuff. It's like, I understand I need to plant some trees. I can do that. I'm a landscaper. I just need some time because this rain has been horrible for business and horrible for trying to work in the woods back there.
Yeah.
So the wetland is off his property.
Right.
And it's, and the property line is defined by a chain link fence. So, it's, restoring the area, whether or not you want him to, again, same issue as the last time. Except he doesn't need the wetland scientist because I pointed out the vegetation and now you got it.
Yep.
He knows what he's doing.
Yeah, you can get like just kind of a sketch loading where the line is.
Yep.
And we're just bringing down some shrubs before, so maybe we could just do a few plantings.
Yeah,
back
it's
there.
like white pines or something. Is anything specific? Because like I said, like I really wasn't even cutting anything down there. Maybe a couple little saplings got nailed in the way, but it was really just like that used to be my snowmobile path like 8 years ago.
What's indigenous down there, out there, Andrew?
There's some white pine. There's a lot of little oaks. Did you have some blueberry? I don't know if you pulled up any. I didn't know
You
if
saw
you pulled up
blueberry
any
on the
shrubs.
other side of the.
I thought so. Yeah.
In the
Maybe
inside that horse
some
farm.
blueberries. Maybe some
Okay.
spice bush.
The soil's got any hydrant? Is it close up to hydrant?
No. It's really good.
No, I
horse.
grew up in Easton. I've lived here for
Right.
35 years.
Real good loam.
I bought this property back
But
in
I
2010.
did not see. It
My
was
wife
pretty.
and just been
it was
running the business
pretty,
out of there since, and we started
He'd
in
been doing a lot
2005.
of moving of.
How
I didn't see any
I'd like
hydric
to see
soil.
what you and I talked
I didn't see any hydric soil. I didn't see any sand.
Baby oak and maple seed itself.
Okay.
How can you, so you can't go on the abutter's property, obviously, to measure
It
out.
has barbed
How
wire and
close
stuff.
is he to it?
He's about 12 feet off the fence line.
Which is, the fence is the wetland, or?
No, the fence. No, it's a wet meadow, 12 feet off the fence line.
Okay, so
On
he's
the
on
other side.
20 feet off, probably?
So from that flag right there, I think it was like 38 feet to the property line. Then past the property line, 12 feet is what we thought was the wetlands, right?
Yeah. We were doing Donovan
The
units.
area's working.
I'm
was
6
like,
feet, and if I lay down, that's what we were doing.
I was so excited. It's like all the things. Like, how am I doing this? It's like, what else is going to happen this year? I was
It's already all regraded.
Yeah, Andrea, looking at it, it looks
Soil's
like it's
incredible.
all baby white pines growing everywhere.
Stuff's
That's
gonna
why
start
he's.
growing.
That's why he's offering it.
If the sun ever comes out,
It's all
stuff's gonna
manipulated. He
start
just
growing.
needs to find it.
I'll go on,
Pines.
I'll go on the limits
So
and
you're-
leave it the way it is and
Oh, he needs to do some planting, Mike. It's been completely manipulated. It's not like, it's really thick.
You don't
It's a
think
really
it's
thick
just
soil.
gonna regrow?
Not in,
Honestly, if the sun ever comes out, I just think it's gonna start popping out. You saw the soil.
I know,
There's
the
grass
prob-
up.
the
I'll
problem
do
is-
whatever you want.
the problem is that you're gonna get a lot of invasives that way.
Okay.
The
Alright.
more chances you have of
Alright.
putting the naturals in, the less
Okay.
likely the invasives will come in.
All right.
Is that a hardship for you?
What's that?
Is that a hardship for you to do that?
Oh my God, yeah.
We
We have to hire somebody.
Conservation.
No, it's just-
That is more expensive.
It's just because
He's
like,
looking,
it's been
he's
so
looking to
wet
get
and we're
stuff
so
in,
back
he's looking to
with
get stuff
active
from other
jobs and
sites
everything.
Yeah.
and bring
It's
it.
just like I wanted to get the piles off that 50-foot
okay.
That's what
line
he's
first
gonna
of
do.
all. It's just like I'm
Alright, that's fine.
Yeah.
to get back.
Don't you have some
I
other
fired
pines
2
on the
guys this
upland
morning.
How
side?
much area
What's
do
that?
you
Don't
guys-
you have a bunch of
Just,
little
I'm
pines
just
on
saying the
upland
last
side?
50 feet, unless
Yeah, I
you
can
want,
go grab
unless you
them,
want.
transplant
Just
them.
grab them, transplant them.
Yeah,
Blame a man.
Couple
yeah,
hours.
Yeah.
There you go. How much
Yeah.
area do you think?
Sounds
is
good.
Okay.
Alright,
Alright.
I just had a suggestion.
Yes.
Plant some baby pines.
I just suggested on the upland side, since it's such a large property, why not up on the upland side, he transplants a bunch of his white pines and put them down in the area
Yes.
to restore it.
Yep.
That's fine.
Cool.
So, one every 12 feet.
One every 12 feet. Okay.
And since they're coming from that area, they should do better, cause they're living in
Yep.
that type
Yeah,
of
they are used to
soil.
that soil.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. When you say one every 12
So
feet.
12 feet down center.
Okay, we're talking just along that 50-foot line, or do they need to be like?
Spatters.
Okay, spat. Okay.
Yeah.
I did it
Gotcha.
one time on a job, so they started
Very
going
good.
faster than the area I took them from.
Your maximum number of, you want to fully fill?
I don't know the disturbed area, how much is it?
How deep is it from like the silt fence to the end of the disturbed area on the left?
I took some
Um,
pictures.
You have a size, Brian, what is it, 20 by 100, or?
Maybe, if it's
Yeah.
50, then it's probably 150. If it's 50 deep, it's probably 3 times as wide.
But it didn't go. I wasn't all the way back to the neighbor's fence. I took some pictures this afternoon
Did
before
you?
I left the shop.
You have a lot of white pines up around the lot, on the lot? Like,
Yeah, there's literally
When
white
do you-
pines.
Andrew was saying you might be able to get some plants from other sites that you're working on.
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of stuff there. It's not the best picture, but you can kind of see behind that silt fence I put up. There's plenty of trees still there. I didn't really, like I said, I moved my loom and
Oh, so
compost
something
piles.
from
There's
the-
still.
the silt fence to the edge of the disturbed area.
Tell me about it.
Yeah. Okay.
I like the, what'd you say about every, what'd you say?
12 feet on center?
Yeah, just like
Okay.
like 2 rows staggered.
Yeah, so I mean, if you just take that
Yeah.
road, my snowmobile path that got bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
We just take that and we'll stagger white pines and stuff along that thing.
Yeah, I think that's fine. All right.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks.
Thanks for coming in and hanging
Thanks
out.
for your patience.
Thank you very much.
Long night.
Gonna dry out,
Long
it's gonna
night.
dry out.
Sounds like you guys still have a longer one, so.
Did you watch
Good.
Game of Thrones
going to
last
bed.
night?
I did. I
Yeah.
watched it.
Uh,
I was so excited.
Just
The
stop.
dire- the dire wolf survived.
Oh, yeah, no
That was
kidding.
Awesome. That's my favorite part. I love animals. Alright, thank you
Take
everyone.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
Good night.
all right. 305 Turnpike Street.
Woohoo! Ah,
Good night.
You were right when you said not to come before 8 o'clock.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was nervous I was gonna miss it. I was a couple minutes late, but
No, didn't.
No, there was no
No.
worry about that.
no, no, no.
Do we wanna go over our board business first before this, maybe?
Personal vendetta against this person?
No. I think you should introduce yourself. This is not Easton Mobile Homes.
I'm Bill Kenny from Riverhawk Environmental, and Easton Mobile Homes called me because they had a problem.
Excellent.
There we go.
This is good.
And
Yes, they did.
they're taking it seriously, so that's pretty good as well.
Unusual.
Yeah, I can't speak to that, but I know they are taking it seriously. This is the first time we've worked with them. So do you want me to put the address of the property that I'm here for?
Yeah. So, Mike, you've been out to see this. This is a single. This is a single unit at the. Did you anybody? Maybe other people did too. But this is a single unit at the Easton Mobile Home that put in a retaining wall right at the base of the wetland, and brought to my attention. Couldn't miss it. we put an immediate stop work on it. Got the attention of the New York landowner because we went there instead of the property owner. The enforcement order was issued on the 17th of April. He did install the erosion controls by that following the next couple days. Remove section of the retaining wall by
Within a day, I think.
I think it was within a day too.
Oh, good.
And then you were called in, and I heard from you right away. So he's once we said no more, stop it, you've been bad. He's been all over it.
Great.
He the landowner. And Bill called me from the site. You were literally there within a week, less than a week of. He was on the site less than a week from when we wrote this. I'm looking to see when you were first there. You were there on the, we issued on the 16th, and hand delivered it on the 17th, and I got a call from Bill on the 17th that afternoon. So, what did you see?
So, basically they work some area within, almost within 5 feet was the closest they got to the wetland behind unit 215. It was the unit owner that was kind of clearing up his backyard. He had there was a shed and a boat that were out there, and when he took those out, it was kind of all disturbed. He graded the area and put a I didn't see the retaining wall, but there was
We have pictures.
a plywood or something like that retention wall. So that wasn't really working out. And when I first got there, they had the owners of the park had already graded this area off and established erosion controls. Was
That's the
silt
wall.
fence with straw wattle. Oh wow.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Huh. Nice.
It wasn't gonna last.
Wow.
Yeah, licensed contractor put that in.
I think the guy's an artist or something like that, like he does.
That's something.
Yeah. So,
Is it a retaining wall or is it just a fence?
Well, it didn't have any anchors.
I think the idea was for it to be a retaining wall.
But there's nothing on either side of it, just
Right.
like somebody stick up, are they playing army or something?
bocce court. back there.
Bocce
They were
court,
gonna fill it in
yeah.
and that.
And there's the wetland.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
All right.
So, it's gone.
So
the
graded out.
Yeah, the
erosion
way
control.
erosion controls are there. The way it sits now is it's just topsoil. It's not really stabilized, but it's not going anywhere either. When I drove by a couple days ago, things were still in place and didn't appear to be any even migration towards the erosion controls. So that's good. And for restoration in this area, we've proposed 3 different plant types: the gray dogwood, high bush, blueberry, and red maple, 3 of each. And then there's a catchword. You help me with this. A post and rail fence. We proposed.
Yeah, we should make this a big
Yeah.
visual barrier.
Andrea, how did this get caught? How did this get caught?
I got a call.
You know, because it's a good thing, because if you're looking at it, that I was just looking at one of the photos, that was getting ready to be filled in, and it looks like they were planning on doing something, so you got them just in time.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Just in time.
Yeah, there was a
They'd
little
really be
square.
in trouble.
There was a little square foundation. It turned out it was going to be for his screened-in cabana.
Oh, boy.
So
That would've looked
I'm
nice
actually
in a
a
dumpster.
licensed site professional, and you can't do anything at a mobile home park without somebody calling the town. No matter what, there's gonna be a couple phone calls if you're doing something a little
Sketchy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
we were just like nuts with this guy because apparently it had been done while the property manager called me out to help him with a problem he was having with the neighbors, and it's like,
Oh, we got some more history on this one. Oh, there
You
we
saw,
go.
you saw the real me that
Oh,
day.
this could
Did
be
we
like
get a no, he
Showtime
didn't.
series. Jeez.
Anyways,
Anyways.
it's all straight now.
Yeah, and then they'll put grass up here, standard 45, 10 grass, and then there's some wetland mix in the side, in the transition area where the plantings will go.
Stamp plan.
The other.
He's all ready to go for a notice of intent, except for his assessor's list.
Okay.
We have to talk to the assessors and see if we can get a list faster than a need time to get filing on May 22nd, 21st. He needs to get the abutter list before May 21st, if he can. I don't have any pull over there, but you might.
So there's two other things that I wanted to talk about too. There's a concrete pad on the back of the pad extended on to the pad. They might have had an oil tank there or something like that in the past, and it's kind of cracked and falling off. So we recommended just removing that. We know it's not associated with the structural pad because the way these things roll over the road, the weight doesn't start until about here and it ends there, just because there's a chassis underneath. So we recommended just removing that and loam seed in that area. And then there's a maple tree out there. You can see it in that picture. And I couldn't tell because there was no vegetation when I was out there, but according to the maintenance people, the tree only gets a couple of, just barely a little bit of foliage at the top of it. So it's kind of like on its last legs apparently. And it's leaning out over the unit, over the residence there. And I didn't know if there's anything we could do to put in the order for
Trimming?
Observing the tree and seeing if it's dead or if it's okay, and if it's not doing okay to proactively.
It's this one, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to believe it's dead because it's got like a great root system. It's got the water right there.
Right. And those trees there, there are a bunch of trees that would.
Yeah, we were talking about that, me and Mike, when we were out at Tufts Farm, when we did the day visit.
Yeah.
With Stefan, and it's there's no rhyme or reason to just certain maples and especially white oaks and red oaks.
They're swamp maples, so aren't they?
Yeah.
They're all swamp maples.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yes, sir.
So let's keep an eye on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Is it possible for them if it's really not doing well or an imminent
Up to you
threat
guys.
to?
I'll go back out and look at it
Can
tomorrow.
I make a suggestion on that?
Yeah.
First of all, when they go to take it down, it's gonna come down with a crane,
Mm-hmm.
so there's gonna be no disturbance. So I'd rather see if it's doing okay, if they could get an arborist out there to look at it, to see if it's bug damaged or whatever, and make an assessment, and if they could bring something in to us so we can, because I can't tell if a tree is dying.
Yeah, kind of like what we did with
Certified arborist.
what's that old name?
Winterberry.
Winterberry. Yeah, but I mean, because we're not tree experts.
No, you can't, yeah.
But if we get the word from an arborist one way or
Yeah.
Well, if it's like people say, if the top is dead, it's fairly easy to ascertain
But it isn't a,
Would that be something that we could include in this order, or
Yeah.
would it be some an activity that could be done with?
He should get as much as he can from this order.
Yeah.
These
Because we can always like.
Look it up.
We don't
Yeah,
have
it may not
a
happen right
3-year
away.
time frame, so we can condition it so that, hey, it's fine now. The arborist says it's on the edge, so if in 2 years it's over the edge,
Yeah.
then maybe. we
but you
should
have to
look at
talk about how it's, you can't just say drop it, you can't drop the thing out into the wetlands and just,
Right.
it's gotta be come down with a crane
Yeah,
and.
we'll just have to condition it, but yeah, Andrew's right, you might as well ask
Okay.
now.
Sounds good.
Okay. Great.
I think that's.
Do you need anything else from us?
I don't think so. I think by the 16th or so, we'll might be the 14th, whatever the deadline is, we'll be able to.
Oh,
submit
that's right.
notice of intent.
21st is a Tuesday, so he needs it by the Thursday before. Needs the assessor's list by the Thursday before,
16th.
the 16th.
Okay.
That
Thank you.
should be doable, but if not,
Just let her know.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll adjust from there.
yeah,
Well,
I think we have
submit
the
every-
fees dialed
submit
in,
everything
too. I'm
else.
not really sure. We were having a little bit of a hard time with that, like figuring out the category that we were in and the multiplier for the 60 cents, but
Yeah.
We'll provide rationale in the narrative at least for how we came up with the number.
Yeah.
Sounds good. All right.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
so
you.
much.
Good job. Good job.
Nice to meet you, person.
Thanks for waiting for us.
All right, minutes. Anybody have anything on the minutes?
They look fine to me.
All right, motion to accept.
Somebody's tired. Someone's tired.
I read it.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Who is that guy over there?
Critical environmental planner updates?
I got 3 minor mod requests to modify the projects.
Do you think they're minor?
I do, except one of them I want to talk to you about is, it's 314 Center Street, little blue house
Yeah.
at the corner of Cross or is it Short? Short.
Yeah.
You did a septic upgrade, but now he wants to put a second floor on the section of the building that is closest to the wetland. And sure, it's only a second floor, but he has to work outside the limit of work. He's going to work he's going to do the work inside, but things are going to fall. So I talked to him about putting a plastic fencing 5 feet off the foundation and just not going any closer. Frankly, it's not that high quality a wetland, but it is inside the limit of work that you set up. So I wanted to get your opinion as to whether that'd be okay.
Yeah, and then just no machinery?
Yeah,
I have
no.
one little problem.
Yep. It's okay.
That particular house
Yep.
has historic value.
Yep.
Absolutely.
And I talked to Wayne about it.
Mm-hmm.
And that guy right now, I don't think he's going to get permission to do that. So I think,
The addition?
I don't think he,
Oh no! I showed Wayne the
And what did Wayne say?
picture.
Wayne's okay with it?
Yeah, he said considering the options, it was actually not bad.
But doesn't it have to go before his board and everything?
He looked at it.
Okay. Okay. Because I know I talked to him about it.
I showed-
He was asking me about it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Because I literally showed him the pictures,
Okay.
Well, honestly,
and,
that's
and
not my
not the
business.
pictures.
Right,
That's
right.
historic.
Okay, all right. So
Yeah.
anyway, so
Put a fence up, no equipment.
so he's not bringing any heavy equipment. All he's
Working
doing
from the
is
inside.
yeah. So he's working off of ladders.
Right.
But
You're taking,
dumpsters gonna be on
He's
the
gonna
up.
have to take, roofing material's gonna be coming off and.
Dumpsters are gonna be upland side, and yeah, everything's gonna be coming towards the upland side, the
can't
strip.
carry everything.
Yeah.
yeah, so we literally put a fence line 5 feet off the back and said, stay within
He
this.
could do that. Yeah.
Okay, good. If you're okay with that, that's the modification.
Because when he goes to site, he's just gonna put story poles. Those are only 3.5 feet off the building, if that.
Now you want to talk real minor. That's real. That one's legitimate. This one is 5x6 step off of the back. They took down a deck, and he's adding a step off of the slider that he didn't include on his plan, and he's got a certificate. He already got a certificate of compliance.
Where's that?
14 Arthur. 14 Arthur. Yeah, it's right there inside. It's like absolutely a minor modification.
Yeah.
Except it's a minor modification of what he already issued. We already issued the certificate of compliance, but
It is what it is.
yeah, let it go.
Yeah, I mean,
That was the one
deck
that
was
had
there
the messed up.
anyways, so.
That was
Yeah.
one of the places that had a Welsh.
Yes, it was a complete
Yeah,
mess.
yeah.
That's
And
that
then
one
this Mr. Levy
up off of
had
North Main.
yes.
Was it that cul-de-sac
Yes.
with the cross?
Yes.
Yeah, no, I know. The extension permit last week, you did an extension permit, but you didn't sign. I can't remember, this is, oh, I'm supposed to ask you about this. Okay, here is a, do you see
Rock.
that? Do you see that? You see that? No, yes, a rock. Do you see the fallen tree?
Yes.
It's on land that is owned by the Conservation Commission, and it makes this guy crazy. He wants to get rid of it. I told him there was no.
In the woods?
Yes,
The rock?
no, the fallen tree behind the rock.
About the rock.
I said, I'm so glad you sent me this picture. I was looking at the wrong tree. You know?
Ah, the fallen tree.
And so he said he wanted you
Which tree
to
is the
take.
one
He
that's
wanted you to
50
take
feet
it
away?
down.
No.
The one that's like 50 feet away from the house. That one.
That
Already
one.
down?
It's down.
Was there anybody there when it fell?
So this has to be signed by Stefan and
How
Michael?
do we know it didn't
That's
grow like that?
Is
Yes.
this from last time? Stefan and
So he wants you guys to remove that,
Huh, good.
and I told him
Breath.
I would bring it to your attention.
Thank you.
Thanks for bringing it to our attention.
Okay, we're
All
done.
right,
Just-
so
just
when,
Michael
when,
Lionel.
when do we wanna meet on that one?
You can tell that I'll have to file a notice of intent if you'd like.
Oh, my goodness.
Greg Swan wants to do an annual, he wants to do a annual report on the, the town's, stormwater, permit. And he wanted to meet with you guys. The Board of Selectmen, the planning board would like to join you for a joint meeting. Would you like to do a joint meeting with the planning board off of a meeting night? Or would you like to do it at your meeting on June 3rd, or would you like to pick another date in early June? Talk stormwater.
So us, planning board, and Greg Swan?
Yeah.
DPW?
Can we
Yeah.
meet downstairs?
Yes.
Because in June they'll have working AC downstairs. Won't have the noise maker thing.
That's a good thought.
So we could do it June 3rd, or you can pick another night that works for everybody, like a Thursday or Tuesday or Wednesday.
The one hesitation,
Maybe
about
we can-
putting anything more into these meetings.
Is it,
Yeah.
everybody else gets weight.
I mean, it's, we've been here 3 hours and 40 minutes.
And the first meeting was the hardest, but,
Yeah.
but,
It was a lot to
but,
talk through.
yeah, it was a lot to talk through in our,
I'd say let's find an off night that works for
everybody.
everybody.
Tuesdays, Wednesdays best for you?
I mean, the only thing is, I
6:30?
mean,
Greg Swan's probably the busiest person of
He wants to
the
be,
three.
yeah, I mean, he'd like to be here at 6:31.
Right.
what about doing it on one of the nights the planning board does? Because
They meet every other Monday.
I know, the off Mondays of us.
They have the same problem. She wanted to do it a separate night.
Okay, then it's fine with me. Then I was just offering up because I've seen some of their meetings be
When
like
does he
40
want to get it
minutes.
done, like ASAP
So-
or
No, early June.
early June? Okay.
So while you're looking, the we got a concerned,
June 6th, Thursday.
June 6th, Thursday.
Game time for me.
Game time? Yes, or you're at a game.
No, it will be a game time decision.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Okay.
I'm good with June 6th.
And then Tufts Farm wants to schedule a forum for the second project, between May 28th and June 12th. The second forum after
gotcha.
I go out
Right.
to the
Can we do that the
Berkshires.
same night?
Yes, you could do it the same night.
Because if it's just planning and us for Greg's stuff, that can't.
Great point.
Yeah, let's do it the same night, 7 o'clock. 7:15.
But the first meeting with Greg is 6:30, correct?
Yeah,
Okay.
Perfect.
on the 12th, on
Sixth.
6th, May 6th. Okay,
June 6th.
yes, June 6th, if it works for planning board,
Today is May 6th.
June
Correct.
6th.
All day.
Oh, wow,
Okay,
okay, and then we'll try to do Tufts afterwards.
What do we do with these lovely books?
Hang on here.
What's that?
Okay, that's it, those are all critical.
yeah, they stay here.
Look at the wetland fees and all.
I gotta go to Las Vegas
Okay,
tomorrow.
great.
You know you're getting
Oh.
old. You
Next
know
time
you're
again.
getting old and you were afraid of going to Las Vegas.
I don't like this.
Motion to adjourn?
No,
Second, all those in favor?
Third.
Aye.